or who will be joining us shortly, I should say. I was just on my other channel. I want to test something quickly because I have a new, kind of a new setup at the moment with the cell phone stand. So I wanted to see how it looked, how it sounded, if the new microphone was working, all that good jazz. So please take a moment, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how you guys are doing and if there's anything that you want to chat about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any thoughts you have, positive, negative, or neutral, I'd love to hear them. We are going to be chatting about Steve Jobs. More particularly, what can we as Freemasons learn from Steve Jobs? Also, and we're going to talk about some of those things. Also, I want to give a shout out to friend of the channel, as well as just really cool fella. You often see him on here as Freemason. But Vince Abdon, Vinceabdon, brother, he wrote a hip hop song called The Brotherhood. It's available on Spotify. I've heard a few Masonic songs, never heard a Masonic hip hop song. Well, actually, sorry, I shouldn't say that. There is another rapper out there whose name I can't think of now, who's a Mason. But I don't know if he's done any hip hop songs that are about Freemasonry. This one's called The Brotherhood. It's by Vince Abdon. It's from 2025. Check it out. Just go to Spotify, type in The Brotherhood. You can find it there. It's called The Brotherhood, Vince Abdon. Let me just write it in here. By the way, how do I sound? Apathy, that was it, Courtney. Let me know, Smokey, how do I sound with this new kind of setup? I've shared it on some of my socials. I have to share it on YouTube still, but I've shared it on all my other socials. Twitter, Blue Sky, all that good jazz. It's actually a cool looking logo as well. I really like the way it looks. Just the image of it. But yeah, we're going to be talking because I'm actually a big Steve Jobs fan. And there was a work that came out called Make Something Wonderful. The Masonic version of that title would probably be Build Something Wonderful, where it's all of Steve Jobs, or not all, but Steve Jobs's speeches, interviews, comments, just a lot of things right from his own mouth as relates to his philosophy on both Apple, Pixar, I suppose life in general. A Twitter user, ex-user by the name of David Senra, he actually posted, and he has a podcast as well, he posted his notes from the book Make Something Wonderful, kind of coalescing or condensing all of Steve Jobs' ideas and thoughts into the main points. There were 50, actually more than that, sorry, there were 76, if I recall correctly, 78 points that he wrote based on the work. I think a lot of them are applicable to Freemasonry, and I'm going to review them all. And yes, 11 more days until we get to do our live stream together, which is going to be a blast. It'll be me on my personal YouTube channel. Smokey the Clown is going to join us. It's going to be awesome. By the way, Courtney EA, I got your message. I believe I mailed your items to 5103. I'm not positive. I should have taken a picture of the envelope before I mailed it. But I'm going to give it another week. If you don't receive anything by August 25th, then I'm going to mail you a new package. It's going to be a congratulations card on your EA degree and 2 coins. So once you receive that, by all means, let me know. I would very much appreciate it. And yeah, sorry it hasn't gotten to you yet. I'm hoping at least if it doesn't get to you, it gets returned to me so I can resend it. Yeah, well, the phone overheated. By the way, thank you so much. Congratulations to the Windsor Hip Hop Festival um, for inviting me out. I posted some pictures on my social media channels. I hope you guys will check those out. I had to do two streams. The first stream was great, but then the phone overheated, as was all of the equipment in the hip hop festival kept overheating. So they were suffering from the same thing I was. I had to do a second stream, which was fun as well. So both of them were an absolute blast. But yeah, I had a great time at the Windsor Hip Hop Festival. Thank you to my friend and brother Hannah, for organizing a great festival. Um, I also want to congratulate the Windsor Masonic Child Identification Program, the CHIP program, for returning to Windsor, Essex County for the first time since I understand pre-COVID, and actually, putting on the really valuable, really important program. It was wonderful. So congratulations to all of them. I mean, oh, I got sunburned quite nicely. I did not realize just how warm it would be, but it was very, very warm. So I will check it out for sure, Smokey. Is it on YouTube or on is it on your YouTube channel as well, or is it exclusively on Discord? But yes, I should have wore a hat. So we're gonna wait for a little bit, give a chance for people to find. I'll hit hit the like and subscribe button when you join. But starting around maybe even half an hour in, I will go through, you know, Steve Jobs in his own words, notes from the book Make Something Wonderful. Uh, what we as Freemasons can learn possibly from Steve Jobs. Actually, that's something I'm going to make the first poll question. One of my actual movies I really enjoy is Steve Jobs the movie. I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin fan, and he wrote. I thought Steve Jobs the movie was really great and very underrated. And I think there's a lot of lessons in the movie. I think in the book. I think in what Steve Jobs writes, or his autobiography, his speeches. There's, I think, a lot that can be learned from Steve Jobs, and I think we should be trying to learn more. One of my favorite quotes is from a professional wrestler by the name of John Moxley. Um, he said, he will take a good idea from the janitor. That's one of the reasons why he's been so successful. I think we as Freemasons sometimes are far too quick to dismiss ideas if they are not coming from within Freemasonry or a Masonic source. But non-Masons may have very good ideas as to what we can do in Freemasonry to help grow our lodges, and to help grow Freemasonry in general. I used the white van. I had a sausage and fries with mustard. It was very, very good. Um, yeah, anytime you have anything like that for, I'm a big fan of that type of stuff for lunch. So, I think it's worth $300. So, but I put more money into it, so I still haven't really made much, for the record. But yeah, about $300, give or take. And don't forget, and one more time, I'm going to go through what we have coming up. On August 20th, so 2 days, from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., I'll be on Instagram doing the Insta Live thing. That's going to be a lot of fun. Uh, I've never really done an Instagram Live before, so I'm looking forward to trying Instagram Live, seeing how it goes. Please follow me on Instagram if you've not done so. August 21st, starting at 2 p.m., so an hour later than usual, I will be having a 24-hour live stream. I have a few different things I plan to talk about during that 24-hour live stream, but one of the biggest things I plan to talk about is all of my Masonic mementos, regalia, souvenirs, that I have. Like, I'm going to go through, for example, all of these pins. And that is a very small number of all the things I actually have. I'm going to go through. Give me 1 sec. I'll be right back. Don't go too far. I'm coming back, I promise. Just trying to find the thing now. Where'd I put it? It's always hard to track down. I'm back. Didn't go far. I'm going to show off all of my pins, or all my pins, all my coins. Basically everything in this bag. It's full of Masonic Challenge coins that I've collected over the years. So, like, I don't even know if I could go through all of these now and remember them all. Like this one, Cameron Bailey. This is one of the ones I actually really like. I like it because it's colored. Most coins are just like, silver or gold. I like coins that have red, blue colors on them. This big thick coin here for all the conspiracy theorists. So that'll be fun. Paintings like this and where this came from. Anyways, I've got a ton of stuff. Honestly, I have more stuff even than I'll have the capacity to show on the 24-hour live stream, because a lot of my stuff has been donated to the Masonic Temple for safekeeping. But I'm going to talk about those items, and not just those items. I'm going to talk about why it's important that Freemasons collect items like that, as well as have within their lodge a budget to make items such as that to give away to guests and friends. Why you should have items like that with you when you're traveling from your home lodge. Things you need to think about in terms of insurance, storage, display, and final arrangements. And as much as possible, when I can, and I can remember, I will try to share the story behind each item. There are some, like, I don't remember where the story comes from, sadly, which is also why you should always keep a Masonic journal, by the way. Because I keep a Masonic journal, but even me, I'm not the best at always recording stuff, and in some cases, I wish I'd taken the time in the Masonic journal to record, like, where I got the pin from, or why I got it, or whatever it might have been. I wish I'd done that in those cases. Like, let me see if I can find an example of it here. Like this. I have no clue why I have in my Masonic pin collection or Masonic coin collection, I should say. Let's see if I can even open this now. I have a U.S. Customs and Border Protection Field Operations coin. And protecting the front line abroad, Vancouver pre-clearance. I have no clue what this is, why I got it, where it came from, but it's in my Masonic coins. I cross the border all the time. So there has to be, I must have got it from a border guard or a customs officer, or maybe somebody who was a Freemason who worked as a customs officer. Throw it in the chat. They usually don't do well with links in the chat, Smokey, but what I'll do, I see you sending me on Discord. I will share it after I check it out. I'll share it on my socials, my Facebook, my Insta, my Blue Sky. Not my Insta, my Blue Sky, my Twitter, my Facebook. so other people can check it out. I'd be happy to do so. We can even talk about it maybe when we're live streaming together coming up on August 29th, which is the next thing we have coming up, August 29th. Um, August 29th, live stream at 12 p.m. Eastern with Smokey the Clown. August 30th, we have got what's going to be a blast. We have got a softball game for families being put on by Windsor Lodge number 403. If you're in Windsor and you're a friend of mine, get in touch with me. It's open to friends and family, and that's going to be a blast. And then that is kind of the big things we got coming up. I have my school reports. You kept them, but you gave them to me, so I have them in my files here. Not that I'm sure what I'll ever do with them, but I have all my old school reports from back in the day. So I look forward to giving you my opinion. I'm sure it's going to be great. I really enjoyed the Brotherhood song a lot. So thank you to him for sharing that with me. Yes, I agree. We do have some great people, as does the States, by the way, as does the United States, as does everywhere. No, there is no single country that has the monopoly on great people. There's also no country that has a monopoly on not so great people. People are people. You are welcome, the Brotherhood. I enjoyed it. I was wondering, do you have anywhere that you could send me the lyrics to the song? Because obviously, I mean, I could hear a lot of it. I like the song about, or the line, my word is my bond, my grip is a seal, I think is how it went. But I'd love to actually get the lyrics themselves. You could maybe send them to me by email or something like that. I just love to read the lyrics and maybe share those even. You can do that by going to info@squareandcompass.ca. Sure, thank you so much. Can we as Freemasons learn anything from the leadership style of Steve Jobs? Or we could have just said Steve Jobs in general. Yes, 75%, no, 25%. So 3 yeses, 1 no's. I think we can. I'm actually going to be writing this out as a Medium story as well. Don't forget to follow me on Medium. It's kind of like YouTube for writers or YouTube for writing. So feel free to check me out on there as well. It is like I said, it's where I post a lot of my it's where I post my writings about Freemasonry, particularly what I think, it's a lot of more what we as Freemasons, I think, can learn or can, things I've learned that I think can apply to Freemasonry to help us better learn and understand how to grow our craft. And so I'm going to be basically, this topic is going to be turned into a written topic on Medium. So medium.com, Square and Compass, you'll find us. Please follow me there. And thank you, the Brotherhood, for that. I truly appreciate it. Oh, and there's a siren outside. Hope everybody's okay. I hope, as a traveler, as someone who has been lucky enough to travel a fair bit, take a lot of airplanes, obviously, my hope is that the Air Canada strike currently happening in Canada gets resolved as quickly as possible. I've always been incredibly impressed with all the people who help make flying possible, whether it be the crews at the airports themselves, who keep the airports clean, who keep the airports operating, who keep the planes coming and going safely, to the baggage handlers, to the pilots and the co-pilots, to the flight attendants and the rest of the crew, to the mechanics who work on the planes, to the people who work in the actual like shops in the airport, like, keep me fed. Um, I have nothing but respect for all of them. Their jobs are not easy by any means. And so I certainly hope that travelers aren't being negatively affected by the strike, especially Masonic travelers if they have to get to a Masonic event somewhere. But I also hope that, the workers are taken care of because they take care of me. And I said, I understand it's just an Air Canada strike, but when I say just, it's, exclusive to Air Canada, not the airport workers otherwise. But still, you want everybody to be taken care of uh, as well as you can. Steve Jobs, I don't think Steve Jobs ever threw a coin. Mr. Keeps on ticking. Hey man, here we go. Here we go indeed. Thank you for being here once again. I hope that you're doing well. I don't know. I feel like I don't know you well, but I feel like you might like Steve Jobs as, if nothing else, as like an idea or a concept. I'm curious. You can, replace the word Freemasons with Knights, or sorry, Knights of Columbus, or civic organizations in general. Do you think we can learn anything from the leadership style of Steve Jobs? Which I'm going to be talking about that leadership style, uh, you know, about an hour into the stream. A Twitter user by the name of David Senra, wrote Make Something Wonderful, which is a 250-page book of Steve Jobs' speeches, letters, correspondence, comments, interviews, basically condensed into a book to try to capture his leadership style and his philosophy. David Senra took notes from the book, 78 altogether, which try to condense kind of Steve Jobs' ideas or ideals. And I think there's a lot that we as Freemasons could take from that. So we're going to be reviewing each of the 78 notes written by David Senra, and then how I think they can apply to Freemasonry. I mean, I guess it depends. I heard he could be a bad guy. Um, I watched the Steve Jobs movie by Aaron Sorkin, which is a great movie, and I read the Steve Jobs autobiography by Walter Isaacson, if I recall correctly. He certainly could be a not so good person, but he also, accomplished a lot of pretty important things. He was one of the first people to think about things like not even like just a laptop computer, what that is, the Macintosh. He was like at the leading edge of technology and innovation and the way people react or interact with technology. However, he also had certain philosophies that I think which he tried to bring to Apple, for better or worse, which I think we can maybe try to bring to Freemasonry. Walter Isaacson, I'm pretty sure that's the author, wrote a really great book about him, a really great autobiography. If you get the chance, I would check that out. And the movie Steve Jobs, which was written by Aaron Sorkin. I think he directed it too. Let me see if I got that correct. I know he wrote it. Oh no, it was directed by Danny Boyle. I would check those two things out. They're both really, really good. The quote I saw about it that I really liked was, I'm trying to find the actual quote. I'm doing well, Douglas. How are you doing? You're a smart man, Smokey. Yeah, well, Apple, right? So Macintosh, he was basically responsible for the creation of the Macintosh. Let me see if I can find. There's some quote where it said like none of it happened, it was all true. Where basically I think the implication was it's not that it was historically inaccurate, but the voice of the characters or the way the characters acted was accurate or would, if that makes any sense. Good, Douglas. Let me know what you think of the poll question. Like I said, I'm going to be um, talking about lessons from Make Something Wonderful. The Masonic version of Make Something Wonderful would be build something wonderful, right? That's what Freemasons do. We build. Um, lessons from the work. So, um, lessons from the work of Steve Jobs, from the book Make Something Wonderful. 78 notes on that book that try to convey the Steve Jobs leadership and just philosophy, which we can apply to Freemasonry. Hopefully, we can apply to Freemasonry and what I think about each one. So 7 votes, yes, 81%, no, 29%. He did, not him alone. It was him. It was, Wozniak. It was Markula. It was John Scully in some ways, though there's obviously a lot of, that's kind of a contentious point. So yeah, it's tough to know for sure. But how much of it was Jobs, how much of it was the people around him? That's one of the discussions in the movie Steve Jobs is how much of Apple's success was actually due to Steve Jobs and was actually due to other people that Steve Jobs was not willing to give the credit to, such as Steve Wozniak, for example. Nothing's wrong with that, Smokey. Sometimes technology is a bit more trouble than it's worth, but I still appreciate you being here. And I'm glad that you did start on this process so you can join me and we can do a live stream together. Valerie, hello. I hope you're doing well. I hope you take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button. And let me know how you're doing. And let me know if you have any questions or thoughts on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral. I'd love to hear them. Thank you, email. Thank you for sending me the email. Child of God, thank you for being here as well. Please hit the like and subscribe button. I hope that you are doing well also. We are going to be talking about Freemasonry. We always talk about Freemasonry. Today we're going to be going through the 78 points on Steve Jobs' leadership style based on the work Make Something Wonderful. Freemasonry is what we might say build something wonderful. And based on the 78 points, to what extent we can take things and apply them to Freemasonry. I have been a traveling man. Traveling is something I'm very, very proud of. I became a traveling man in terms of being a Freemason in 2007. But my favorite place to be is on the road between one place and another place. My favorite place to be is my favorite space is liminal space, is in between space. Interesting. Can Freemasonry learn something from the leadership style of Steve Jobs? Yes, 60%, no, 40%. So 6-4. Taya, I do have a big nose. I've grown to accept that about me. I'm not the most attractive fella in the world, but if you want to make me feel better about my big nose, please hit the like button and please hit the subscribe button. That would help big time. Mr. Keeps on Ticking, you're a fan of hotel lobbies? I'm a fan of hotels just across the board. I love hotels. I love hotel lobbies. I love airplanes. I love buses. I love trains. I love all that stuff. I'm a fan of hotel lobbies. Any liminal space I like, right? You could argue all of life is liminal space, or life is liminal, right? Basically, life is just the in between space. Is an in between space from birth to death. You will not exist for far longer than you will exist, or you will be in the afterlife for far longer than you will be in life. So, life is a liminal space. I did. That was in Hamilton. That was a fair time ago now. I remember that. But it wasn't a bad break, to be honest. It was pretty light. So I got lucky. It wasn't a worse break than it was. It was definitely, it wasn't even that painful to be honest, at the start. It got painful later on, but I remember I finished the horseback ride. It just grew painful at the end of it. Um, so we're going to give it a bit more time. We're going to see who joins. Any of the new people joining, if you have any questions about Freemasonry, please let me know. I will be um, like I said, going to be talking about Steve Jobs, the 78 points or notes on his not just leadership style, but his entire philosophy that we can potentially or maybe apply to Freemasonry. And you can actually find a lot of that stuff um, on YouTube, actually. Like a lot of his speeches and a lot of the a lot of the work, a lot of the material that went into the book, Make Something Wonderful, is also available in its original form on the YouTube. So check that out. Welcome. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, answer our poll question. Let me know if you think Freemasonry can learn anything from the leadership style or just the general philosophy of Steve Jobs. We're going to be talking about what that philosophy was, and we're going to be talking about how I think Freemasonry can learn things therein. And this could apply, honestly, to almost any Masonic or just civic organization and civic group in general, not just Freemasonry, right? That's one of the best things, then, I think, about this stream is, I think one of the most important lessons, or not even lessons, one of the most important things that Freemasonry needs to do and is not. I mentioned this earlier, right? One of my favorite wrestlers, a guy called John Moxley, he said in an interview, he will take a good idea from the hot dog vendor. He's not exclusively looking for good ideas from Freemason or from professional wrestling. He's looking for great ideas from any source he can get it from. I think we as Freemasons, or me as a Freemason, or Freemasonry in general, one of our biggest errors, one of our biggest mistakes, is that far, far too often we will take advice from other Masons, especially older Masons, but we are far too unwilling to consider ideas from outside of Freemasonry or philosophies from outside of Freemasonry, which is a shame because Freemasonry itself grew by basically boring / stealing from the philosophical, mythological, even religious in some ways, political philosophies of everything that came before it. So that is I think one of those things that's worth exploring. We're going to answer that question, EA Freemason. We're going to answer that question in about 25 minutes. So just hang on tight because we're going to go through the 78 points or notes based on the work Make Something Wonderful. I'm going to change the title to Build Something Wonderful for Freemasonry and how each one applies. And 13 votes. Interesting. Yes to no. 54% yes, 46% no. Can Freemasonry learn things from the leadership style of Steve Jobs? So it's really interesting to see. And thank you for all the hearts. I'm going to assume that's Smokey the Clown, but that can be anybody. Wants to take a few moments to hit the like and subscribe button and leave a few hearts. Me and Smokey are going to be doing a live stream together August 29th, 12 p.m. Eastern. And by the way, if you're not yet, make sure to jump on and join my mailing list for MailChimp. What you can do is, well, I appreciate it, Smokies. info@squareandcompass.ca. What you can do is shoot me off a message, give me your email address, and I will add you to my mailing list. You also get that if you become a patron and you provide an email address, you'll become a member of the mailing list that way as well. Honestly, the August 29th stream is going to be probably about scary movies and video games, and it's not going to be Masonic. It's just going to be kind of a pop culture stuff in general, and just us chatting. But Smokey has his own live streams that he does regularly. I encourage you to check those out. They're not about Freemasonry. They're just about kind of hanging out and having a good time. But you need some of those streams as well. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram, because Wednesday, August 20th, from 3 to 6, we're going to be doing an Insta Live. For 3 hours, I'll be streaming on Instagram. Again, trying different things. I think we as Freemasons, I talk about being willing to, we can't just do the same thing over and over again. We need to be willing to experiment, to try new things, to try different things. All that stuff matters a lot and is really, really important. So what is going on, Christopher? Are you going to be joining us on, our Instagram stream, on our 24-hour stream? We'll be finding you there. Thank you very much. It makes me aerodynamic. So, it makes me aerodynamic in my wheelchair. If I don't have it, then I'm so much slower. I'm still going to do, so on August 20th, I'm still going to do my typical 1 p.m. stream, but it is going to be much shorter maybe a little bit shorter, because at 3 to 6, I'm going to be on Instagram. But by the way, you can make an Instagram account. You don't even have to post anything. You can make an Instagram account and just to follow me. I'd much appreciate it. A couple of reasons, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. So the first thing is electric wheelchairs are it all goes back to this. And if you can read that, I know it's upside down. It says Traveler right there. Electric wheelchairs are very, very heavy, and they tend not to be able to fold, which means it's very hard to get them into somebody's car or to get them necessarily in like the storage area of a bus or of a bus or plane or train, which means I either have to remain in my wheelchair for the whole trip, which can be uncomfortable, like I take the lift or whatever it is, or use the wheelchair specific seating, which I'm not a fan of, because it's not always available, so it tends to cost more. It either costs more, it's not always available, and being in the chair that whole time can get uncomfortable. So I like knowing that if I'm taking a Greyhound bus, I can put my chair underneath the bus, get to my seat, and there's no issues and no challenges. Or if I need to take a road trip somewhere, um, then I know my chair is going to fit in the car without issue, without needing a special or specialized, wheelchair van, even for an Uber or whatever it might be. They're more expensive, and I find that there's more moving parts, which means they tend to break down more. Eventually I may need to switch over to electric wheelchair because my shoulders aren't going to last forever. Although that also, forcing myself to keep exercising by having a manual wheelchair, I think is a good thing. Because as I've often said, we as Freemasons need to care about our health and our well-being. And I'm a big, big believer in that. So my wheelchair is doing okay right now. It does need a couple repairs. It always does because I use it so much. But by the same token, could you imagine how many, repairs I would need if I had an electric wheelchair? So those are the reasons. I will tell them, Smokey. I will tell them to stop looking. But to Christopher, if you do decide you want to jump on and follow me on Instagram, it's at square and so it's at square underscore and underscore compass underscore promotions. You can follow me there. I could use them, I'm sure. That would be, but that would be even bigger, and I can only imagine the challenge that would be in terms of getting onto a car. And yeah, that's not. I have thought about that. Is having my manual chair for when I'm traveling and electronic chair for when I'm either getting around the city or no, I won't be traveling. But it is expensive, and OHIP only covers so much. But it's worth looking into for sure. I've thought about it. Oh my God, I have no clue. I mean, it's got to be in the millions at this point. Like, assuming. So let's assume at a minimum of. So I've had this chair. I believe I've had this chair for about 10 years. So let's see. 10 years times 365. So I've had this chair for 3,650 days. And let's assume at a minimum, because I would go back and forth from the Windsor Masonic Temple, and that was about 3 kilometers. 10,950 kilometers if the furthest I travel is between 3 kilometers a day. But my suspicion is it's closer to 7 kilometers on average. 25,550 kilometers. So not quite millions, but a lot. A lot. By the way, I think we're going to be having some past people back on the podcast. Dion and Kadeem from Texas, 2 great guys. What's the best? I mean, the best chair is the chair in the East. The best chair is King Solomon's chair, for the record. That's a Masonic reference. But what's the second best chair? Thai Light. That's really cool. I will check that out. Very comfortable. I will check them out for sure. Tie light. I mean, this chair probably has another 4 or 5 years in it. Though, I should always be thinking about getting a new chair. Or always keeping that in my mind because no chair is going to last forever, right? Regardless of how. So, I mean, spinners would be fancy pants, that's for sure. I'm not a fancy guy like that, though, Smokey, right? I'm not a fancy guy like that. I'm a simple man. I'm not, I don't believe in fry sauce, um, et cetera, et cetera. So, I appreciate that, EA Freemason. That is very, very kind of you. But I don't, I'm a simple man. I can't be having spinners. Next thing you know, I'll be getting fry sauce from, the Midwest and all that stuff. Hey, welcome, Dion. We have a brother here he's been on the podcast before, a Texas man. How's it going, Dion? Thank you for being here. Worshipful brother Kadeem recommended I have you. Oh, links don't usually work on YouTube. It's a pain. You got to send it to me through social media, but I'll check it out for sure. Um, Brother Kadeem, as you know, suggested I have you back on for a podcast. He said you've been doing some really great work in Texas. I don't know if you can throw something in the chat about what you've been up to. I understand it has to do with insurance, which, believe me, we as Freemasons need to spend way more time thinking about insurance. Um, for our buildings and even for our Masonic items. One thing I'm always talking about is when you have special Masonic items, you need to get insurance for them. Like, I'll be back in just 1 second. I'm not going far. I'm just trying to find. I'm back. Like so many Masonic lodges, right, um, they'll have past masters jewels in their collection, like, right, like this, for example, which I'm going to talk about this um, on Thursday. But they won't have, like, they'll have insurance in terms of, they'll have property insurance, it's general property insurance, but they won't have in their insurance um, any mention about specific Masonic items or jewels. Like for me, I have my personal insurance for my belongings, but then I have a special section in my insurance rider which lists actually my Masonic items specifically and how much each one is worth, separate from just the general property insurance. Because, if anything happens to my television, that's one thing. If anything happens to my Masonic items, that's another. And especially because most insurance companies won't have a natural understanding of what they are, how much they're worth. Having a special section in your property insurance, which covers unique items of historical and sentimental value, like Masonic items, is really, really valuable. And you need that for, I think, both on the personal side and on the Masonic side. So many Masonic lodges, they'll have liability insurance for somebody that gets injured on the property if they own the property. They'll have they'll have a general property insurance, but they won't have a specific section for, historical items, historical artifacts, things that have great deal of historical value, and you need them. I think in Freemasonry. That also brings me to, we in Freemasonry are so bad about taking the time to digitally preserve our items, right? Like we have so many, Masonic ritual books and Masonic documents that date back hundreds of years, years old in some cases, and in no places are these things preserved electronically. In no place, where do we have these things preserved on a USB stick on a cloud. So heavens forbid, there's a fire, there's mice get into it, there's water damage, whatever it is, just age. Yes, you want to preserve the originals, obviously, but you also want the information preserved. And that's why it's so important to preserve things digitally in case anything happens to the original. Um, they call that, and as Dion says, right? Dion, who knows this stuff with insurance, a lot of lodges forego what is directors and officers insurance as well. What is directors and officers insurance? Would that be like liability insurance specifically for the directors of, let's say, the Masonic building itself? And it is very nice, EA. So we need to do more scheduling in our insurance. We need to do more preservation of historical documents. We need to get more of our items not audited, appraised for their value. And we need to look at directors and officers insurance. Well, I know you have a fellow craft degree coming up. You're doing the secrets, you said. You will do very well. Makes sense. Yeah, so you need that as well. Because technically, most Masonic buildings, everyone is an officer of the building, if not a director of the building. So, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Um, and so you've been helping lodges with that? I've helped quite a few lodges. I have argued this in the past. I'm not saying that the esoteric side of Freemasonry isn't important, because obviously it is, and the ritual and things like that. But so much of I think where Freemasonry is not doing well is we're not paying attention to the needs as it relates to insurance, security needs. Um, do we have the right type of insurance? How are we paying our property taxes? Are we taking advantage of grants to leverage funds? Are we accessibility standards? In terms of insurance, I think one thing that could reduce insurance liabilities, which me as as a Freemason I've argued that we as Freemasons should have first aid training that's up to date. We should have smart serve training so we understand how to safely serve alcohol. At least in Ontario, it's called smart serve. We should have food handler training so when we're serving other Masons dinner as junior warden, we know how to do that safely. We have training on how to work with people with disabilities. We have WMIS training. We have security training, maybe active shooter drills. All those things I think could reduce our insurance liabilities and help demonstrate our qualities as a Freemason. I've argued for that, actually. I don't know, Dion, if you follow me on Medium, but if you get the chance, check out four qualifications every ish. Let me just actually get the actual title, and I'll share that. But that's where I talk about what I think Freemasons should do. And the examples I give, again, are first aid, that's up to date, smart serve for alcohol, working with people with disabilities, WMIS, and food handler safety, as well as having knowledge of the security features and insurance features of the building. Let me just find that, Dion. I'll share with you so you can read it. And if you could put a comment down as somebody involved in insurance, what you think of it, if you think there is a value to it, that would be very appreciated. Let me see if I can track it down. And yeah, and as for what we were talking about, Dion, let me know what you think about when you want to meet to do our actual interview, because I'd love to talk to you about insurance, the pitfalls you see in Texas, but how you think that can maybe be beyond Texas and other jurisdictions, how lodges can reduce their insurance liabilities, types of insurance lodges should have, all that good jazz. So 4 qualifications every senior Masonic lodge should have, in our opinion. If you type that in and go to Google, you'll find it. Let me know, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. Do you know if Knights of Columbus has insurance issues for their buildings? I agree, and I've argued for that for a long time. So I'm actually going to be talking about that in October 1st at one of our meetings. So maybe even if you want to share that, you could. But here's the... if you type this into Google or copy and paste into Google, you'll find the article. If you want to share it with others, if you think it's valuable, please let me know. I'm actually going to even take your comment and include it. Right? It's really, really tough, but it's really, really valuable as well to know these things. Okay, so please, Dion, follow me on Medium, and please let me know when you want to do the interview. I would love to talk about this stuff. And Keeps on Ticking, in 4 minutes, we'll talk about the jobs principles. Right, so a ex-user by the name of Dion Senra, at least that's his name on X, at Founders Podcast, he read Make Something Wonderful, a 250-page book about Steve Jobs, or Steve Jobs in his own words. Basically, speeches, interviews, things outlining his philosophical and leadership ideals. David Senra wrote 78 notes based on those ideas, and put them on Twitter. So I'm going to read each one of those notes and the extent to which I think they are or are not beneficial for Freemasonry, or what I think Freemasonry can take from them. No worries, Dion. And thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. And it protects the lodges themselves. That's the key, right? It protects the lodges themselves, is the purpose of insurance. So let's give it 3 whole minutes, then I'll start. And Dion, thank you for being here. Shoot off a message to Kadeem. Also, let him know to stop by. I'd love to see him. They'll come under different rules, but I think the same philosophy applies. So... So 2 more minutes, and then I'll get started, I promise. Interesting, the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's very interesting, the voting split. Can Freemasonry learn something from the leadership style of Steve Jobs? Yes, 60%, no, 40%. Yes, and in that case, you better have liability insurance, and you better have property insurance. Otherwise, directors may be on the hook. So, okay, 1 minute, then we will get started. I promise. Okay, let us get started. So we are talking about Steve Jobs, his philosophy, his leadership style, and how we in Freemasonry can potentially learn from it. And we're basing this on 2 things. The first is Make Something Wonderful. Make Something Wonderful is a posthumous collection of Steve Jobs' words, including interviews, as well as speeches, commencement addresses, released more than 11 years after the Apple co-founder's death. It was compiled by a small group of family, friends, and former colleagues. The book offers an intimate view of Jobs' life and thoughts through his notes, drafts, letters, speeches, histories, interviews, photos, and mementos. It is published by the Steve Jobs Archive. It's available for free online and on Apple Books. Edited by Leslie Byrne, designed by Love firm founded by Joan Ivey. I myself have not read it yet. I've actually reviewed part of it, but not the whole thing. But I have read the Walter Isaacson Steve Jobs biography, as well as, I really love the Steve Jobs movie. It's not really a biography per se, but a movie by Aaron Sorkin, or written by Aaron Sorkin. So based on Make Something Wonderful, a Twitter or X user by the name of David Sendra, you can find him at Founders Podcast, wrote 78 notes from Make Something Wonderful that he thought best captured Steve Jobs' ideas, as well as Steve Jobs' kind of general philosophies. So there are 78 of these, and I am going to review each one and how I think they can apply to Freemasonry. And at any given point, let me know what you think of these ideas. And you can agree, disagree, put it down in the chat. I'm happy to spend a bit of time talking about each. Welcome back, Ilker. Please take a one, hit the like button if you've not done so already. So note number 1. When it says he, it's always Steve Jobs. He didn't care about being right. He cared about being excellent. Right? I think that how many times do we in Freemasonry, and I've seen this happen many times, and this isn't exactly an exclusively Masonic thing either. How many times do we in Freemasonry find ourselves getting in these kind of foolish arguments, foolish fights about who knows what, some Masonic rule that we think another brother's breaking, or some piece of, this is the Masonic way to do things versus this is the Masonic way to do things, right? I have seen many Masonic lodges and many groups kind of start to fall apart because two people are fighting, and they're not fighting. They're fighting because each one thinks they're right or wants to be right. And that is a very dangerous thing to fall into. I think we as Freemasons shouldn't care about being right. We should care about being excellent. So instead of, this Mason over here is wrong, and I'm going to convince him that he's wrong, just focus on being excellent in your own work and in your own efforts and in your own time. Focus on being excellent in your own ritual, in your own proficiency, EA Freemason. Focus on being excellent in what you're doing. Care about being excellent in the work. Don't feel the need to correct every Mason who gets something wrong or is incorrect, because that is, ultimately going to be a losing game. And I think many groups fall apart when leadership or the members care more about proving they're right than caring about just being excellent with their work. That's a good thing, EA Freemasonry. I'm very sorry, Ilker, that you're at a mom and dad funeral. I hope it was your mom and dad, and if it is, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. That sucks. That you would be at, any funeral sucks, but I'm very sorry about that. Second note, and Mr. Keeps on Ticking, let me know what you think about these things as well. Second note, his mind was never a captive of reality. Right? I cannot tell you, and this is going to come up a lot on a 24-hour live stream. I cannot tell you how many times I, in Freemasonry, and have others have heard, tried to do something and heard it's impossible, it will never work, it can't be done because of this reason, it can't be done because of that reason. This idea that this thing, because it's never been done before, is impossible to do, and we shouldn't even try. And I'm very sorry about that, Ilker. That sucks. Yes, go to work, Smokey. Um, and I'm very sorry about that as well, Ilker. So, um, the I think being a captive of reality. Or 1 second, I'll keep going. Is to be a. I mean, Ilker, I'm very sorry that you're going through this. Hopefully, you have family that can support you. Um, and I kind of wish you the best of the best of I guess it's the best of luck. I don't know. I just hope that you have family and people that can support you. I can only imagine how tough it is. But I wish you, like I said, as the best as I can in a very challenging situation. Um, but yeah, his mom was never captured reality. So I think we as Freemasons need to be willing, instead of saying reality, what I'd say is we as Freemasons should never be a captive of, should never be a captive of the status quo. We should always be willing to try new things, think outside the box, think of different things. We should always be willing to consider new ideas. I mean, the cornerstone at City Hall, the For the Next 100 Years program, traveling around the world, this podcasts in general. All of these things are new ideas that if we as Freemasons had been captive to reality may not have taken place because would have been told it's impossible, can't work, things like that. Um, 3, Steve Jobs, he said, working with great people gives you access to wisdom that you can't buy for love or money. There are 2 ways I think you can take this note and apply it to Freemasonry. The first is, he said, working with great people. You can take the working for great people as meaning, and this is a Masonic term, but probably most civic groups have some version of this term, guarding the West Gate, right? This idea that the type of people you bring into a lodge is going to determine the quality of the Masonic lodge, right? And in Freemasonry, there's this idea of if you're working with or have a lodge with the right people, with great people. So these are the notes from the source. Again, if you're on Twitter, the source is David Senra. He is at Founders Podcast. But these are the notes based on the works of Steve Jobs. And some people are doing some work across the hall. I hope it doesn't interfere with this sound too much. He said, working with great people gives you access to wisdom that you can't buy for love or money. It's important to have great people in your organizations, great people in your lodges. But also, I think it doesn't have to apply exclusively to Freemasonry in terms of the people you bring in. It can mean that we as Freemasons should be willing to go out and find great people to get the access to wisdom that we need, right? So we talked about earlier, find the greatest people in the insurance fields to give you the wisdom necessary to know how to insure your Masonic buildings successfully, or effectively, I should say. Find the most wise people in graphic design so you have the wisdom to design the best Masonic coin. Find the greatest people in online work, in social media, so you can create the best Masonic accounts, social media accounts, the best Masonic posts. Find the greatest people in performing arts. so they can give you the wisdom you need to perform better Masonic ritual, right? Find the greatest people in the trades so you can find the most wisdom in terms of how to maintain your Masonic building to the highest standards, right? And also make sure the people you are bringing into Freemasonry is in and of itself the greatest type of people so your lodge can have the greatest access to wisdom, right? So working with great people gives you access to wisdom that you can't buy for love or money. It starts with the people, not how much money you have, not how much love you have per se. It starts with the people that you have. And if you have the greatest people, you'll have the greatest access to wisdom and the greatest ability to grow in that sense. 4, he believed technology should be streamlined and practical, simple and sophisticated, and that it should be a tool for enhancing creativity as much as productivity. I would say for this one, this is primarily a note about technology, but I would say it can provide a little bit in Freemasonry. There's a fly, in the sense that, our Masonic meetings should be streamlined and practical, simple and sophisticated. One of the things I've noticed is sometimes in our Masonic meetings, and I've been guilty of this as a worshipful master, we try to overcomplicate our meetings. We try to do too much. We try to, we try to fit 7 hours of information into a Masonic meeting that goes 2 hours. And that tends to complicate meetings. Instead of maybe spending a Masonic meeting focusing on one idea and exploring that idea, we try to explore 20 or 30 ideas. And that can be a very challenging thing. Sometimes keeping your meetings streamlined, practical, simple is a good thing. That can also in many ways enhance creativity because it gives Freemasons a chance to examine or explore one topic in a creative way and in a deep way, as opposed to exploring 20 or 10 or 15 topics in very shallow ways. This is an interesting idea. Number 5, or note, he believed, again, Steve Jobs believed, you should ambush your customers, meet them where they are. I don't know if I would use the term ambush. That seems a little aggressive, but I like the term meet them where they are. And there's, again, 3 thems that we are referring to here when we say meet them where they are. The first them would be non-Masons who dislike Freemasonry, who are opposed to Freemasonry, who don't like Freemasonry, right? If I have, and you've seen this on the stream, right? If there's somebody on the stream who just hates Freemasonry, talks about how terrible it is, how much they hate Freemasonry, I need to meet them. If I just say, well, you're wrong, you're an idiot, Freemasonry is wonderful, you're a foolish person, that's not meeting them where they are, and they're more than likely not going to want to listen to me anyways, right? If I can say, okay, I understand where you are based on, maybe stuff you've seen online. Maybe you met a Freemason who was kind of a jerk and that soured your view on Freemasonry. Maybe you, whatever it might be, right? You had religious teachings that Freemasonry was bad. Whatever it might be, if I need to meet them where they are first and say, okay, I understand where you are now based on, whatever experiences in your past. However, here's some things, at least in my experiences. And maybe the one thing I can do is convince them that I'm a decent person, if nothing else, right? That's an example of meeting them where they are. Then there's the person who is interested in being a Freemasonry and approaches the lodge because he wants to join. Again, meet them where they are. Okay, so they're interested in joining. Why are they interested in joining? What do they hope to get from Freemasonry? What are their concerns as well? What might be holding them back? What could be their family's concerns? And meeting them where they are and trying to work with them to see how we can get them to join in a manner that's going to be most successful for them and for the lodge. And then the third thing, right, is maybe Freemasons themselves who are not showing up regularly, who are not showing up to lodge. Again, meet them where they are. So why is it that you do not want to show up to lodge? What can we as a lodge do potentially to meet you where you are, make it easier for you to join, right? Or to return to lodge. One of the things about Steve Jobs, famously, is he had a very intuitive but correct understanding of what a customer wanted with technology, and imagined how he could potentially deliver that thing, right? Or what was holding them back from getting a computer, and how we could potentially get them that thing. We as Freemasons need to do the same thing, right? We need to try to understand on some level what is keeping our members from attending lodge, and can we find a way? Do we need to look at, for example, having childcare in our Masonic buildings? So if you have a Mason who cannot attend lodge because he has childcare responsibilities, can we set some type of daycare in our lodge, keeping in mind insurance, things like that, to allow him to come out and have the childcare at the same time? All of those things are very valuable. But if we're just not meeting anybody where they are, we're just assuming they should be where we are, that's very, very challenging and can result in a loss of... It can result in either the anti-Masons becoming more anti-Masonic. It can result in people interested in joining Freemasonry ending up not joining. And it can end up in Masons who are not showing up, continuing to not show up. So all that food sounds very good, by the way. So meet the people you need to meet where they are. That was also one thing we used to hear a lot in when I was a probation officer, this idea of meeting your clients where they are. So if they have some not so good views of women, not so good views of whatever it is that brings them to you as a probation officer, you don't start your interview with them by saying you're wrong, you're a misogynist, you're this or you're that, blah blah blah. You try to figure out, okay, why do they feel the way they feel, and how can I try my best to meet them where they at and get them on a journey where they no longer feel whatever it is that they feel, right? Feel that it's okay to be abusive towards women in some form, right? How can I get them where they recognize that it's not okay? Something to that effect. His ideas, so this is, again, note number 6. Steve Jobs' ideas were not arguments, but intuitions. He had a true inner freedom and an epic sense of possibility. I think for me, what I see from this as a Masonic idea, a Masonic note, is we as Freemasons need to be more willing to trust our guts, to trust our intuitions, and not even necessarily feel the need to argue for them, but rather just trust them. I've known a lot of Freemasons who had really, really good ideas, but talked themselves out of those really good ideas because they were nervous, they were scared to try, they didn't know if they would be successful or not, they were afraid to fail, and so they talked themselves out of their intuitions. Even though in my experience, more often than not, those intuitions were actually really good. And if they'd followed through on them, they might have been successful with them. And that's especially true. In some ways, that's true for older Masons or more experienced Masons who develop intuitions over time. I think in some ways, I've developed some really, really good intuitions about, I meet somebody on the street, whether I think they make a good Freemason or not. And that can be a really powerful thing. But also, even newer Freemasons who are not, because they're newer, they can they can have a lot of really good intuitions because they're so new, they haven't been kind of worn down by conventional thinking, conventional Masonic thinking. They're more likely and they're more able to um, um, they're able to see things in a new way, in a different way. They're not trapped by conventional Masonic thoughts, and oftentimes their intuitions are really good. Their problem is they're too scared because they're brand new and too nervous to even discuss them or bring up those intuitions because they feel like they're new and it's not their place. But believe me, it is your place. And if you have intuitions about Freemasonry, please share them with your lodge. Your gut is more correct more often than you believe. Welcome, Carl. Well, I mean, it depends what they were refusing exactly, right? If they're refusing to attend their meetings, might get a breach eventually, which is where you put out a warrant for arrest. But there's a lot of different options of types of actions you can take before you get to that stage. It would depend on how high risk they are, how dangerous they are to the community, the nature of the offense, their history on probation up to that point, their attendance at counseling. You took a lot of things into consideration when you were a probation officer, right? You didn't just take one piece of information, which again is the Masonic idea as well that I try to promote. Consider everything. Consider how things connect. That has to be your kind of goal, right? What is this piece of information? And don't just take what Steve Jobs says or these notes, but take the Steve Jobs philosophy and consider how you can apply it to what Elon Musk thinks and his philosophy, to what your Grand Master is working on, to what your lodge thinks, to what the hot dog vendor thinks, to your own experiences, to what's worked in the past. You take all these different factors and you apply them together in one kind of way to move forward. If what I'm saying makes any sense, it means you're awesome, and it means the weather's finally getting cooler. He gave an extraordinary amount of thought to how best to use our fleeting time. Again, that's note number 7. I think, the what I take from that most strongly is time is, for the average Freemason, for the average person, time is our most important commodity. It's the one thing we can never get back, we can never get more of. So because time is fleeting, because it's our most important priority, we need to spend an extraordinary amount of time thinking about how we can make the best use of time as Masons. That means how we can make the best use of our time in a Masonic meeting so people don't feel like they're going there and wasting their time. We need to the best use of our time in a Masonic ritual. Understand, look, if somebody's visiting or traveling or attending a meeting, they're giving up some of their time to be with you. So we have a responsibility to think about how valuable is the Masonic experience? How much do they enjoy the meeting? How much do they enjoy the ritual? Are they trying their best to do a good job with the ritual? Like, all of that stuff is incredibly valuable, and we need to think about all of that stuff. We need to think about how are we making sure that when we come to a Masonic meeting, that is the best use of the limited time on earth we have for those 2 hours to 3 hours to 4 hours to half an hour, right? And that doesn't mean necessarily you have to make every meeting super short. Sometimes that might be what it means. We don't have a ton to do today. Your time is valuable. We're going to get this meeting finished as quick as we can to make sure that you have as much time as possible that you can spend with your family, right? So sometimes making the best use of fleeting time means keeping the meeting short, to the point, streamlined, and efficient, as we noted above, to get out of there early. But sometimes, you can have a very long meeting that is still nonetheless a very good use of one's fleeting time, so long as you have it planned out as to what you're going to do. So note 8, by the time he was 30, this again is Steve Jobs, by the time he was 30, he was the public face of a Fortune 500 company. For me, what that says is anything is possible, right? Anything is possible, and we as Freemasons should not be afraid, should not think, I've heard a million times, we'll never return to the same numbers of membership as we had in the 1950s or the 1920s. People told Steve Jobs he would never be, a millionaire. He would never be CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he is, or he was, I should say. So I think that, to me, what that should tell us is anything is possible. We should be very proud of our work as Freemasons. And I can tell you personally, there's been a million things I've done where people told me in Freemasonry, and people have told me it was impossible. And so I hope that if there's anything, and it doesn't have to be Masonic as well, but anything that you are nervous about trying or think you can't do, for what it's worth, I believe in you, and I believe that you can do it. So I hope that you'll give it a shot, and I hope that you'll try it. He said you should think of your life. Note number 9. At Apple's first board meeting, he put his bare feet on a conference room table. I don't know if Freemasonry can take anything from that. Wear your shoes to lodge. Carl, I'm glad you're free. I hope that with your free time, you will hit more like and subscribe buttons, follow me on social media, all that good jazz. But congratulations on that. So that is note number 9. Carl, I guess what you're saying is you want to put your bare feet up on the conference room tables. You do you. I don't know if I'm a huge fan of that myself. He said you should think of your life as a rainbow arching across the horizon of the world. You appear, have the chance to blaze in the sky, then you disappear. So that's note number 10. I think that note number 10, it applies to note number 7. Yes, my lodge does, Todd. So you're not going to be able to get away with not wearing your shoes. The idea of fleeting time, right? You appear, you blaze in the sky, then you disappear. We, have a responsibility to make sure we are using our time as valuable. We're using our time as well as possible, using it in a way that is as valuable as possible. And I think that remembering that should encourage Masons to make sure our meetings are as valuable and useful and efficient and streamlined, are a good use of time. And we never waste anybody's time, including our own. We're Freemasons. We have responsibility to make sure we don't waste our own time by making sure we put on the best meetings we possibly can. Welcome, by the way, Todd. Thank you for being here. Note number 11. He possessed unbelievable rigor that he imposed first and most strenuously on himself. I think the note for Masons here is we should take our Masonic responsibilities seriously, and we should impose that seriousness on ourselves first and foremost. And if we're expecting other people to do certain things, we should be willing to, set those same standards for ourselves. It can be very dangerous for any group when, you have different sets of rules and requirements, or different Masons treat themselves in different ways. He saw clearly, one, what was not there, 2, what could be there, and 3, what had to be there. So that is note number 12. I think we could ask the same thing for Freemasonry. In Freemasonry, what is not there, what could be there, and what in Freemasonry, Or so you can put it another way. What is not in Freemasonry? What could be in Freemasonry? And what needs to be in Freemasonry? Right. So I think with Steve Jobs in the technological field, he saw clearly what was not present in, the technology of his time, what could be in the technology of his time, and what needs to be in the technology of his time. And then he set about doing his best to make those things happen. I think in Freemasonry, very often we are not clear-eyed or seeing clearly those things. For me, what is not in Freemasonry as of 2025 is the relevance. The relevance of Freemasonry to our communities and to our membership. The way I define relevance is with the question, if your Masonic body disappeared tomorrow, would anybody in the community and anybody in the lodge really care or be affected by it? If the answer is yes, then it is a relevant lodge. And the more the answer is yes, the more relevant it is. If the answer is no, then the relevance is not there. And in many jurisdictions, the answer is no, unfortunately. What could be in Freemasonry? Right, relevance. I do not believe that relevance is something that cannot exist within Freemasonry. It is something that we can create. I've worked very hard to try to create relevance in my communities. And for Freemasonry, I feel like I've often been successful, and I'm very proud of it. But I think, saying relevance can be within Freemasonry, a lot of people hear that and it sounds to them like what they're saying is like unicorns can be in Freemasonry, right? Like it's an impossibility. Relevance exists, and relevance for Freemasonry can exist again. And 3, what has to be in Freemasonry? Again, what has to be in Freemasonry is relevance. We simply need it to exist. Freemasonry can do without a lot of money. It can even do without a lot of members. If it has very little relevance to the communities in which it's located, it is not going to survive. That's just kind of the truth, right? At least the way I see it. But we as Freemasons, I think, need to see clearly what is not in Freemasonry, what can be in Freemasonry, and what has to be in Freemasonry in order for it to survive. 13, I think this is really, really, really a valuable thing, and something worth exploring. He said early Apple employees were more like poets and painters than cold technologists. That the passion they put into their products were completely indistinguishable from other creative fields. He said their work was a form of love. I really loved in the movie Steve Jobs. I think I've talked about this before. There's this one scene where Steve Wozniak is talking to Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak, is the engineering brain of Apple. He's the technical engineer. He's the guy who's, puts the hammer to the nail, creates the circuit board, all that good stuff, right? That's what he does. Steve is like the designer. He's the person who designs the work, right? And so at one point, Steve Wozniak says computers aren't paintings. And Steve Jobs responds, F you. I'm not going to swear for the algorithm, right? He says, F you. Yes, they are. And every time Steve Wozniak would say computers aren't paintings, Steve Jobs would respond, F you. Right? And so the reason why I bring that up is, we in Freemasonry, truly, I believe this, Freemasonry is first and foremost an art form more than anything else. It's not a technical exercise. It's an art form. And the best Freemason is himself an artist. Right? That is what it is. That is what we are as Freemasons, right? It is first and foremost an art form. Freemasonry is an art form. And I think we need to think of ourselves as artists before we think of ourselves as anything else. Or if you want to be technical about it, you could say we're craftsmen. I think instead of treating Freemasonry as a technical exercise, did you say the right words in the right order, which is important, it's the art that matters. It's the art of conveying ritual. It's the art of conveying it's the art of conveying ritual. I truly believe that. It's the art of conveying the words and the meaning behind the words. Running a meeting as a Freemason, as a worshipful master, is first and foremost an art form, right? You have to know how to run it properly. You have to know how to work with the members of the lodge. You have to know, okay, which two Masons don't like each other? Are they going to get into a fight? Like, not a physical fight, but are they going to start arguing back and forth? How can we stop it from happening? What are the pitfalls? How do we make the meeting engaging, enjoyable, fun? He did get the idea from Xerox / stole. Good artist borrow, great artist steal. Right. The passion. So as he said early app employees were more like poets and painters than co-technologists. The passion they put into their products were completely indistinguishable from other creative fields. He said their work was a form of love. Masonic work is a form of love, no different than working at Apple. And the passion that we as Freemasons should put into our Masonic ritual, as well as into our Masonic work in general, as to the running of a meeting, should be indistinguishable from any other creative field. It is a passion project. It's artwork first and foremost. I would rather listen to Masonic ritual that's 75% accurate in terms of the words, but delivered with 100% passion and 100% care, versus a Masonic versus ritual, which is delivered 100% word for word, but delivered with 20% passion or 20% care. Decision-making is an essential skill, but decision-making is also an art form. So I think we as Freemasons need to think of ourselves first and foremost as poets and painters, or as stone masons and craftsmen. We need to put the same passion into our work that creative individuals put into their projects. We need to think of our Masonic work as a form of love, first and foremost. Let me know, by the way, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, what you think of these so far, because I know you were curious about this. He had a verbal, this is note number 17. He had a verbal mastery that was obvious at a young age. He used simple, descriptive language, told stories, repeated lines, and ideas that were important. Unfortunately, and for this one, I would really emphasize the idea of telling stories, repeating lines, and ideas that were important. Unfortunately, and I understand that people don't want this to be the case for various reasons, people are very, very busy. And you like to think that as a Freemason, if I'm the worshipful master of a lodge and I say to the secretary, send out this message, we're doing this at this time, at this date, I should be able to send that out one time and everybody hears it. And just gets it. That is simply not the case. People are busy. They don't check their email. They're very tired. Whatever else it is, you have to repeat. If something's important, part of your job as a worshipful master, part of your job as a secretary, is to repeat the message to the membership over and over and over again, even to the point that they get sick of hearing it. Because if you don't, they are going to not hear it. And believe me, I know how annoying it can be to hear the same thing over and over again, but it's also incredibly, incredibly important that we do so. And using simple descriptive language. Don't overcomplicate your messaging. Whatever message it is that you want to get out and you want to provide, like, keep the message simple, keep it descriptive. Don't complicate. I've seen so many Masons, and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this as sin. If you have a simple message, like, don't use 20 words to send a message when you require 10 words. You know, your second draft, and this is true for anything you say, if you're like refining a speech, as well as anything you write, your second draft should equal your first draft minus 10%. Use simple language, repeat lines, communicate over and over and over again. That's true, Carl, but unfortunately, the first copy never gets seen. So that's just the price you pay for doing business. He thought it was inevitable that computers would be the dominant medium of human communication. He said this in 1983, the year I was born. Interesting kind of side note. It's about the ability to spot trends. I think we in Freemasonry did not do a very good job of seeing what the trends in society were. The fact that computers would be the dominant medium of human communication, and trying to adapt to that, because Freemasonry is, reliant upon communication face to face, mouth to ear, or, in written post. It's not dominant in terms of communication through technology. If it had started to get on the bandwagon a little bit earlier and spotted that trend, maybe it would have more of a digital footprint in 2025, which could make it more relevant to the people and communities in which it's located. Note number 16, he had a talent for spotting markets full of second-rate products. So when it came to Steve Jobs and spotting, the second-rate products, we're talking about Freemasonry. This is kind of, I don't want to, start any or say anything too, too controversial, shall we say. But if the market of Freemasonry is civic institutions or civic engagement, then you could argue that there are a lot of second-rate civic institutions that exist presently. And recognizing that, what are we as Freemasons doing to make sure that we are a first-rate civic institution, that we are the first rate in our market and are not losing membership potentially or losing time to other groups? So if that makes any sense. 17, I think this is very valuable for Freemasonry. Note number 17. He said, again, Steve Jobs, said you could tell how important a product was based on the amount of time people spent interacting with it. As a result, he thought it was inevitable that more design talent would shift from the automobile, 1 to 2 hours a day, to computers, 6+ hours a day. He said this in the 80s. So we talked above with 2 other notes about the extent to which Freemasonry, the extent to which time is valuable, right? Time is our most valuable commodity. Because time is our most valuable commodity, a very good way to understand how important something is the extent and the amount of times amount of time that somebody spends with it. Even if they don't consider it important in like an emotional level, the relevance in their life, the amount of time they're spending with it, is in and of itself going to be a sign of how important it is. So Steve Jobs is not a Freemason spirit, but Wozniak was. Steve Wozniak actually is a Freemason. To my understanding, he got a life membership. So, which is kind of a little cool little thing. Welcome from Greece. So, if you can tell how important a product is based on the amount of time people spend interacting with it, you can tell how important Freemasonry is to the average member by how much time that member spends interacting with Freemasonry, right? A lot of Masons will say, Freemasonry is very important to me, but you never see them in lodge. You got to fly here. If you never see them in lodge, the truth of the matter is, in my opinion, Freemasonry is not that important to them. At least it's not as important to them as other things, right? Um, Steve Jobs would have argued, I think it would have been correct. Somebody may say, I love my computer, but if he never spends any time on the computer, then it's however much he may love it emotionally, from a matter of importance, it's just not important to him, right? You can tell how important something is based on the amount of time people spend interacting with it, or talking about it, or being involved with it, but mostly with interacting with it. So we can tell how important Freemasonry is to somebody by how much time they spend involved with and interacting with Freemasonry. And if they're not interacting with it on a regular basis, then it's not important to them. And then it's up to us as Freemasons, the active ones, to ask ourselves, what type of things can we do that will motivate them, that will cause them to consider Freemasonry important, or important enough to spend time interacting with it. So yeah, Freemasonry, the extent to which Freemasonry is or is not important, is based first and foremost on the amount of time someone spends interacting with it. He said, I read this part, he said that books kept him out of jail, and it's a shame that there are so many mediocre teachers. For us as Freemasons, you could say, I think the best way to define that is, it's a shame that there are, or that there can be, so many mediocre mentors, right? If Freemasonry is going to survive, it needs mentors to be part of the Masonic experience. If you don't have decent mentors, you're running into the issue and the danger of not necessarily people going to jail like Steve Jobs would have, but rather you're running into the danger of Freemasonry not reaching its full potential. Just give me 1 sec. I need to plug my phone in here. Okay, I think it's plugged in. And let me see now if I cannot get this set up so it won't fall down. Come on. Okay, we're going to do it like that for the time being. And we got 19 votes. Interesting. I never noticed that. The 19 votes are yes, 58%, no, 42%. Like many great entrepreneurs before him, Steve knew what he wanted to do, but didn't know how to do it yet. He said he wanted to make an insanely great computer that was the size of a book. What he described sounded a lot like an iPad. He said this in the 80s. So another really good example of having some type of foresight, having some type of the ability to look into the future. I have the same feeling. I've said, I think it was around 2020, that my goal was to one day get to a point where we had a Masonic lodge room full to the brim of Freemasons. like at the Windsor Masonic Temple specifically. I did know that spirit. I've actually contacted him trying to get him on the podcast. So far, no luck, but I keep trying. But it makes sense, Ground Lodge, California, right? He's from Silicon Valley. Um, and I got close, but it's about sometimes if you know the final destination that you want to get to, that is the most important thing. That is more important than actually knowing how to get there. Just knowing that you want to get there can be a really big deal and can be really, really valuable. Like many great, oh, sorry, I already read that one. Note number 20. He believed you should use your unique set of talents to make, Masonically we could say build, to make things that make the lives of other people better. Most people just take. He said the ability to put something back into the pool of human experience is extremely neat. And by the way, I 100% agree with that. And I think that is something that we as Freemasons have, and we forget. We have the ability through Freemasonry to build things that make the lives of people better. I've talked about those things in the past on this stream, right? I'm not going to go through them now, but we can make the lives of people better. We can make the lives of people healthier. We can make the lives of people better, and we do make the lives of people better every day. That's why when people say, what, do I get from being a Freemason? And my response is always, you get nothing from being a Freemason. This is what I'm trying to say, right? Most people just take. The ability to put something back into the pool of human experience is extremely neat. So to anybody who asks me, what do you get from Freemasonry? My answer would be, you get the ability to put something back into the pool of human experience is extremely neat. You get the ability to use your unique set of talents to make the lives of other people better. Because that's what being a Freemason is. It's about making the lives of other people better. It's about using your unique set of talents to contribute to the Masonic Lodge and thereby make the lives of your brothers and make the world a better place. So I really love that answer, number 20. And I think that's exactly what I think we as Freemasons should always consider when we're thinking about this. Use our unique talents to contribute to Freemasonry, to make the lives of other people better. Don't just take, put something back into the pool of human experience. Note number 21. Oops, I'm kind of messed up there. You can be a Freemason at 49, Mr. from Greece. You can be a Freemason at 49 easily. I know Freemasons who joined in their 60s. I hope. For some reason, I feel like it's still upside down a little bit. Or not upside down, sorry, skewed. All right, we'll go with that one for now. He would tell his team, so Steve Jobs would tell his team, you work for Apple first and your boss second. He felt strongly about that. And for this one, I do think it's fair to always remember that ultimately what you're trying to do, like, don't think of yourself as a Mason, like as an Ontario Mason first, as a Windsor Mason first. Think of yourself as a Mason first, right? The whole point of this in Freemasonry is brotherly love. And that means brothers from different jurisdictions. That means brothers from around the world. If you think of yourself exclusively as a, don't think of yourself, you are not a jurisdictional Mason first, you're a Mason first. And the reason that's important is because it means you'll remember to travel, you'll remember to visit your Masonic brothers, you'll remember to treat yourself as what this should be, which is Freemasonry is for everyone. So Don't think of yourself as, for example, an Ontario Mason first. Think of yourself as a Mason first. And what does that actually mean? Um, 22. He was constantly placing the products he was making in a historical perspective, like comparing the Macintosh to the invention of the telephone. I think we as Freemasons need to place our Masonic efforts within a historical context and historical perspective. One of the benefits of doing that is making sure you understand, that Freemasonry does change and has changed. If you don't have historical perspective, it's very easy for you to think that whatever Freemasonry is today is what Freemasonry, always has been and always will be. If you have a sense of the history of Freemasonry, you'll have a better understanding of what Freemasonry was and what Freemasonry is and what Freemasonry, can be. And you might be more willing to, at least in theory, try to be willing to try different things and not be afraid, again, to do things like trusting your gut. If you don't have a sense of the history of Freemasonry and you think it's been the exact same thing throughout history, that can be very dangerous because you don't understand the historical context of what you're working on. I think this is very important for Freemasonry. 23. He believed that you needed to give yourself time to make mistakes. He said his taste got more refined as he made mistakes. He said that making mistakes over a long period of time made his aesthetics better. We as Freemasons must not be afraid to make mistakes. We must not be afraid to fail. Again, I've known many examples of Freemasons and examples in Freemasonry where the membership is simply afraid to try something new because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid to make a mistake. That may even go to the extent of they're afraid to take on a piece of ritual because they don't want to mess up or screw up. Now, we shouldn't want to make mistakes, right? I'm not suggesting that we should go out there and try to make mistakes, but we shouldn't be afraid to make mistakes. One of my more favorite quotes I heard once was, I thought it was really, really good. It was, how did it go exactly? Anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And what that means is if you're sitting there and you're waiting to do something perfectly and you don't want to do anything that, could result in you making a mistake, the danger of that is, you may never do it because there's always a possibility of making a mistake. If it's worth doing badly because at least you've done it, at least you've potentially helped somebody, and you can always try to make things better as you grow. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Steve Jobs made a million mistakes and still look at the things he accomplished. He believed you needed to give yourself more time to make mistakes. I already said that. Note number 24. He said the key ingredient to making something great was time. I would agree with that 100%. And then this again goes to the idea of Freemasonry, right? Not wanting everything to happen right away, accepting and understanding the fact that great things take time. People get busy. And we should, as Freemasons, care about and want things to go well, and give them the time to go well. Give them the time to be great. It took years to organize some things that I ran, so you need to keep that in mind all the time. He said he wanted to spend his life building things. He could have retired to a beach in his 20s and thought that was disgusting. Freemasonry is a lifelong endeavor. Right? What that means for us as Freemasons is we need to take the time to, again, yes, you can do some great things in the first 5 years of you being a Freemason. You can do some even better things in the first 30 years of you being a Freemason. You can do some even greater things in the first 50 years of you being a Freemason. Um, Give yourself time to do something great. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes all of the above, right? He was interested in learning how to hone a company down to its essence. I think we as Freemasons need to be interested in learning how to hone Freemasonry down to its essence. What is the core value in Freemasonry that we are trying to explore, promote, engage within? I would say the core essence is relevance. Actually, no, the core essence, as I've described within Freemasonry, is the belief that the world can be made better through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. If somebody disagrees and thinks there's a different core essence to Freemasonry, then let me know what you think that core essence is, how you think it works, and how you plan on getting there and how much time it will take to get there, right? But we need to learn how to hone a company down to its essence, whatever that essence may be. You read a book and the thought jumps out at you. How many people are willing to go through a decade of failure without quitting? Steve had the capacity to take pain, right? Steve Jobs absolutely had the capacity to fail over and over again without quitting. I think for us as Freemasons, it's the same question. I said we shouldn't be afraid of failure. We also shouldn't be afraid if we fail to try again. If a meeting doesn't go successfully as you'd like it, can we get back up, try to have another meeting, try to have another successful meeting? How many times can we as Freemasons go through failures without quitting altogether? And you could apply this, I don't know, Mr. Keeps, if you're still there. Could we as Knights of Columbus, I understand they're struggling right now. Are they still willing to go through, successful, or go through failures and still try to keep going, keep fighting, and find a way to make it back through success without quitting altogether, right? It's tough, and a lot of people I know feel as though when it comes to Freemasonry, it's struggling a lot, and it's struggling a lot, but that doesn't mean there aren't successes that we can have. He believed it was better to focus on what you're actually passionate about instead of what you think will make you the most money. He made the most money that way, right? Freemasonry is not the type of thing that is designed to make you a lot of money by any means. However, it is something about which you can feel a great deal of passion. And if you're willing to start when you're young and maybe before you have a family, is it possible to find a way to turn that passion into something that you can monetize? I think is absolutely worth asking the question. He listened to older, wiser entrepreneurs, or so any group, right? I think could apply to that question. Are we willing to fail without quitting? And as someone who has failed many times and is still trying, I guess so far the answer is yes. I'm willing to fail without quitting. He listened to older, wiser entrepreneurs and let them shape and mold his thinking. So certainly you see that when it comes to Steve Jobs with, for example, his relationship with Mike Markkula, who really was like a father figure to him early on, as well as, with Scully. Although in the case of Scully, the relationship obviously took on a very, shall we say, sour tone at a later point in his life. I think we in Freemasonry need to find a balance in this. We need to be willing to listen to our older, wiser Freemasons, the mentors, ones who've been there for a long time, and let them help us understand what Freemasonry, how it works at the local level, how we as Freemasons can, succeed within it. But we need to be careful that we do not allow them to mold our thinking so much so that it stops us from seeing other options or thinking about things in a creative or different way, right? I think one of our biggest dangers we have in Freemasonry is allowing, sometimes allowing, what's the word I'm trying to think of here? Allowing the older Masons to limit our capacity or limit our intuitions or limit our ability to think of new things and new options. So I think that one's a double-edged sword. That's note number 29 in this case. Note number 30, not being afraid to fail, but he had to coach himself to adopt that trait. He didn't want to fail, but he wasn't afraid of it. This just goes back to what I talked about earlier. We as Freemasons must not be afraid to fail. We must be willing to try new things, to try different things, and apply those things within our Masonic lodges. If we're always afraid to fail, what that could mean is we'll just never try, or we'll never want to try. 31, don't let your differentiation evaporate. What is it that makes... So I think you can apply this in 3 levels, or at least 2 levels, right? What is it that makes Freemasonry different from other civic organizations? And if we allow that to kind of evaporate, if we allow what makes Freemasonry different from other groups evaporate, then why should people join our Masonic lodges? Why should people remain in our Masonic lodges if it's no different than what you can find anywhere else, right? We need to be willing to figure out what makes Freemasonry different and maintain it for our current members as well as new members. But also in the lodge setting, what makes your Masonic lodges different, right? What is something that makes your lodges in Freemasonry different than the other lodges? If you want people to join your Masonic lodge, to be part of your Masonic building, what makes it different than other Masonic lodges and other Masonic buildings? Think about that, write it down, and use that as a selling feature for, bringing people into your building as well as bringing people into your Masonic lodges. That's something that Steve Jobs really cared about, is figuring out what makes his building, his technology, the Macintosh, the Apple technology different, and not letting it evaporate, but really promoting it. He said, if you let your differentiation evaporate, the only solution is innovation in order to find new differentiations, right? Innovate. So if Freemasonry starts to feel like any other or every other organization or group, then it's worth asking the question, how can we innovate in such a way as to make sure our, differentiations do not evaporate, or we create new differentiations? That has to be something we think about within Freemasonry. Do we feel like any other group? If we don't, what can we do to change that? He believed great ideas don't map. This is note number 33. He believed great ideas don't map onto corporate hierarchy. Actually, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, I'm curious if you're still there. I know you said you don't care about KFC. I do understand that you're more involved in the church. Do you think that these notes could in some ways apply to church culture, or maybe more even general religious culture, or the church? Because it's interesting. One thing, I saw a Steve Jobs discussion, and he was talking about corporate hierarchy. And he said, we at Apple noticed that the oldest organization in the world has 4 levels of hierarchy. And he was referencing the Catholic Church. And then he said, I guess 5 levels of hierarchy if you count the big man upstairs. If you count, God, there's 5 levels of hierarchy. But he said, we as Freemason, he said, we at Apple Computers noted the oldest organization in the world has 4 levels of hierarchy. So we at Apple stick to 4 levels of hierarchy as well. Um, but when it comes to hierarchy, what he says here is um, he believed that great ideas don't map onto corporate hierarchy. Within Freemasonry, we have a hierarchy that exists both within the lodges in terms of our Masonic officer lineup, as well um, as your district hierarchies, where you have your lodge, your district, and your grand lodge. The problem is, and I do agree with Steve Jobs in this case, a great idea might not always incorporate well into that hierarchy, right? A great idea does not necessarily start at the Grand Lodge level and then travel down to lodges, nor does a great idea start at the lodge level and travel up to Grand Lodge. Sometimes a great idea can almost be outside of a hierarchy, or at least will start outside of the hierarchy. So, for example, this podcast, this stream does not map well onto the Grand Lodge or the Masonic Lodge hierarchy system. Rather, it exists separate from it. And that was done on purpose because I felt like it didn't map well onto a Grand Lodge hierarchy. So how do we as Freemasons find a way to not, to have great ideas, but not allow them to fall victim to the hierarchies of Freemasonry? One of my favorite quotes, right, is define a camel. A camel is a horse created by a committee. I've seen many Masonic ideas get, crushed up by having to go through this hierarchical process of you need permission from this group, then you need to form a committee, then the committee needs to submit a report, and sometimes very little gets done as a consequence of that. Well, I mean, what would be the oldest organization? How about this? A very old organization has four levels of hierarchy. So I guess what I'd say is for this, don't allow a great idea to die in a committee or to be crushed through the hierarchical structures of your organization. Number 34, he was incapable of thinking that his work and his life were different, separate things. I am incapable of thinking that my life and Freemasonry are different, separate things. Freemasonry is my life is Freemasonry. That's also true of other things I do. I think when we start to create these separations in our lives, when we start to say, okay, our life is, different than, there's my life and there's Freemasonry, it's a sign that Freemasonry is not relevant to you or to your life and not important to you or to your life. We need to think about Freemasonry as not being a separate thing, but being not a different or separate thing, but being part of our life. I think that's incredibly valuable and incredibly important. Otherwise, you run into the habit of not allowing Freemasonry to be relevant to you, and that creates a lot of dangers for us within Freemasonry, in my oh so humble opinion. Note number 35. He said most things in life are not the goal-oriented materialistic things. He said you should tap into the world's magical, mystical, and artistic sides. I agree with that 100%. Again, we as Freemasons are artists. We should care about the magic of Freemasonry, not just performing a degree to perform a degree, not just performing a degree to get it over with. We should want to bring artistry, passion, magic to the way we perform ritual, to the way we perform our proficiency, to the way we hold a meeting. A Freemasonry is an artist, not a technician. Freemasonry, a ritual, is as much a painting as a computer, as, pursuant to Steve Jobs, as a painting. It's a painting, first and foremost. It's artwork, first and foremost. He paid attention to subtle insights. He was guided by intuition. That's note number 36. Again, care about, pay attention to your gut. What is your gut telling you when it comes to Freemasonry? You should care about that. You should listen to that. You should try to follow it. Your intuitions might be far more correct than you think and than you're willing to accept. Forgive that clicking. I'm going to move my thing here a little bit. He didn't believe in the concept of a career, or think it was wise to follow well-worn paths laid out by others. That can be true in Freemasonry. I always refer to what I'm doing as being part of my Masonic career, which it is. But you don't have to think of it in that concept. But I am trying to follow a different path than that which was laid out by others. Trying to create my own Masonic path, I think, is incredibly valuable and something I take a lot of pride in as I keep on working on it. He said most people make the mistake of not thinking about death. He said, for me, it's the opposite. To know my arc will fall makes me want to blaze while I'm in the sky. This goes back to what we've been saying before. Our time is valuable. Our time is precious. Let's make sure we're using it to try to make the world a better place. Let's make sure, in terms of Freemasonry, we are using it to create the most valuable Masonic experience that we can, and not allow ourselves to maybe not take advantage of it, or potentially to waste it. He thought Walt Disney had a great idea. Edit it before you make it. I have no idea what the chicks are, but Christopher, I hope you created an Instagram account so you can follow me on Instagram. And Freemasonry, I think that just try to make sure you take the time to know your work, to edit your work before you perform it at a ritual, for example. Which girls, though? Which girls are you speaking of? This is really important. Number 40 first, note number 40. He said no amount of energy can turn a bad story into a good story. And then number 41, he believed storytellers were the most powerful people in the world. I think that is really valuable. We as Freemasons need to, in my opinion, do a much better job in telling well, in that case, Christopher, the girls are doing great. Please follow me on Instagram. There are a lot of girls on Instagram, I guess, for whatever it's worth. We as Freemasons need to think about, what is the story we're telling? What is the story we're telling when it comes to our ritual? What is the story we're telling our members when it comes to the story of why it's important, why it matters. We need to be able to explain that through the telling of a story. I think that is absolutely critical. And that is what's going to make us the most powerful. If we're not able to express that story and tell the story of how and why Freemasonry is important, how and why Freemasonry matters to the communities in which it's located, and how and why Freemasonry can make the world a better place through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth, then we're not going to find success. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be the case. So we need the people who can tell that story in our lodge. And at the end of the day, no amount of technology is going to be able to turn a bad story into a good one. We need to know the story first and then move from there. And that goes back to a lot of the other points. Can we communicate that story efficiently and effectively? Can we show off that story well? All that good jazz. It really, really matters. He believed if you didn't have, this is note number 42, he believed if you didn't have great people, then you were doomed. And this, again, guarding of the West Gate. In Freemasonry, are we making sure that we are bringing in great people within our Masonic lodges? When we're talking about what it is to be a great person, there's a lot of different ways we can define that. And every lodge kind of has to define it for itself. But if we in Freemasonry do not have the great people in our lodges, then I think we are going to struggle. Whether we're doomed or not, people can decide for themselves, but we're going to struggle, unfortunately, and to a great extent, if we are not bringing in the great people into our lodges. He found great people by looking at great results and finding out who is responsible for them. This is I think this is a very valuable note. This is note number 43. But I think in Freemasonry, you can apply it slightly differently. Okay, I hope you do. I sent it out on Thursday. It's not about looking at great results per se, although we as Freemasons should talk to the brother and maybe even ask him if, ask the applicant when he's joining, when he's considering joining, what are some things you've done in the past that had great results, right? Whatever those results may be. So for example, did you have at work, did you have any leadership responsibilities? That might imply he'll make a really good Masonic worshipful master. Did you have any success? Did you do any projects within technology? And within technology, did you find success therein? And if you did, can we leverage that? Like, what are you good at? What have you achieved great things within? And how can we, within Freemasonry, leverage that, use that to find success within our Masonic lodge, or so you can contribute the most you can to Freemasonry. The other way, though, to look at it, which is equally as important and equally as valuable, is, thinking about it in terms of we need to know the background of the people who are thinking about joining Freemasonry. What is their background? How do they plan to potentially, positive or negative, right? We're looking for great people. What is their background? It could be criminal records, credit, health, employment, whatever it is. I think we as Freemasons need to note and need to know about the people we're bringing in and the great results they've had, as well as just their life up to the point of Masonic application. Number 44, this is how I interviewed people. In an interview, I will purposely upset someone. I'll criticize their prior work. I'll do my homework, find out who they worked for, and say, God, that really turned out to be a bomb. That really turned out to be a bozo product. Why did you work on that? The worst thing someone can do in an interview is to agree with me and knuckle under. What I'm looking for is someone to come right back and say, you're dead wrong, and here's why. I think for me, what I take from this is just the idea of the importance of a good interview process when someone is applying to be a Freemason. It doesn't have to be, criticizing or upsetting people as Steve Jobs does, but rather it's just a matter of the importance of caring about the application process, caring about the interview process, and caring about how that interview process works. I think that is incredibly important when it comes to Freemasonry and how Freemasonry can work and should work. He believed the job of a leader was to make sure the work is as good as it should be and to get people to stretch beyond their best. I think you could argue that that is a role of a Freemason, is to get people to be as good as they could be and to stretch beyond their best. I think that should always be one of our goals within Freemasonry. How can we get people to be better than we think that they are, or better than they think that they are? I think that is an incredibly valuable tool and very valuable um, part of Masonic education. Mr. Keeps on Ticking, I hope you got my stuff. Let me know if you did in the chat. I'm going to give it a couple minutes. He believed, let me just do one thing quickly here. All right. He believed the job of the leader was to make sure the work is as good as it should be, to get people to stretch beyond their best. He believed the job of the leader was to cajole, beg, plead, and threaten at times to do whatever is necessary to get people to see things in a bigger and more profound way and to have them do better work than they thought they could do. I think for me, again, that to me, what I take from that one is the job of a leader is to beg, plead, threaten. It's to get people to see Freemasonry in a bigger and more profound way, to see why Freemasonry matters, how Freemasonry matters, and how Freemasonry can make the world a better place. And however you need to do that, you need to do that. He believed the priorities of leader were recruit, set an overall direction, inspire, cajole, persuade. So I would say for leaders in Freemasonry, the priority is not to recruit. We wait for Masons to want to join with us before we try to join with them, which I think is the right way to go. But we do set overall directions. We do inspire, cajole, and persuade. Did you get my stuff, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, by the way? Because I'd love to know if you did. It sounds like you didn't, which hopefully gets there soon. I'm going to have to start, I think, tracking the things I send because otherwise it just doesn't work. Well, it's tough, Mr. Keeps on Ticking. All right. If you don't get it by August the 25th, I did send it out Thursday, like I said. If you don't get it by August 25th, so 1 week from today, I'm going to just send a new one, send a new copy, send a new coin, and send a new postcard. So 1 week. That's same with you, Courtney, if you're still there. Ways Freemasonry improved my life? It hasn't, to be honest. That's kind of the thing, right? It's given me more headaches and more gray hairs, but it's not about me, right? Where is that number? I got to find it now once again. So note number 20 from this post. Steve Jobs believed you should use your unique set of talents to make things that make the lives of other people better. Most people just take, he said, the ability to put something back into the pool of human experience is extremely neat. I believe that Freemasonry gives me the ability to put something back into the pool of human experience. I believe it allows me to use my unique set of talents to make things, to make the lives of other people better by applying the practices of brotherly love, relief, and truth. I've talked a lot about the ways I think Freemasonry makes the lives of people better and puts something into the pool. And that's kind of where I want the focus to be, right? If somebody asks me, how will Freemasonry make my life better? My answer is some version of, it gives you the ability to make the lives of other people better. And that's where the emphasis and focus should be. So let's go back. So yeah, I definitely think one of the priorities of a leader in Freemasonry needs to be to set an overall direction and inspire, cajole, and persuade others to follow that direction. He believed a creative company should have a risk-taking creative environment on the product side and a fiscally conservative environment on the business side, which I 100% agree with as well. But I think sometimes the risk-taking creative environment should also apply to the fiscal as well. I know a lot of Masonic lodges that are hell-bent on saving money. In the process of saving money, they're too afraid to take risks. Taking risks is in and of itself a creative endeavor. A financial endeavor as well. You need to be willing to spend money in a creative manner sometimes. I don't mean that as a euphemism for like illegally spend money. Like I don't mean creative accounting practices. I mean be willing to spend money on let's say a project that requires a lot of creativity and a lot of risk taking. And you might still lose that money, but again, don't be afraid of failure, right? We need to be willing to try and we need to not be willing to be afraid of failure. He believed you have to choose what you put your love into really carefully. So that is why if you are joining Freemasonry, so if you consider time to be analogous to love, which I do, people always say time is money. I would say time is love. We need to be really careful as to which Masons we allow to join, because we need to be really careful what we're putting our time into. Because for a Mason to join, an applicant to become a Mason, I should say, we have to put time into that. We have to put time into the application process. We have to put time into the degrees. We have to put time into all of the above. And if we're not willing to, we have to be really careful about that. And by the same token, we need to tell people interested in joining, Freemasons interested in joining, you need to be really careful. If you're going to choose to put your time into this, your love into this, you have to think really carefully, because that is time you cannot get back. So choose carefully. I'd rather have somebody not join than join and be disappointed they put their time into Freemasonry. So time is love, more so than I think it's money. I think ultimately what time is love. He had a remarkably consistent set of values that he held dear. Life is short, don't waste it, tell the truth. Technology should enhance human creativity. Process matters, beauty matters, detail matters. The world we know is a human creation and we can push it forward. I mean, I think that stuff ultimately speaks for itself. When it comes to Freemasonry, the process matters, the beauty matters, the details matter. The world we know as a human creation matters. This all matters. And we should care about that stuff. And we can absolutely push it forward. He thought when deciding what to work on and when you should ask yourself, what do I give a shit about? And then go for that. So again, if you're going to spend your time working on something, first and foremost, what do you care about? And then try to focus on that and focus on what you care about. I think that's 100% the case. He would never sell Apple, not for all the money in the world. I 100% would agree with that one as well. It shows he was passionate about it and he cared about it. And he cared about it more than money. And now having said that, keep in mind he was very rich at a relatively young age, so it's not as though money was necessary to him. But it's more, I think I take that as meaning you should just give a shit about the things that you care about. More than necessarily the money you can make from them. Let's see. He believed you should master the basics, simplify the product line, and focus on the gems. Master Freemasonry, master the basics of it. Learn how to run a meeting effectively. Learn how to run a meeting effectively. Learn how to do your ritual well. Learn about the history of Freemasonry. And then simplify, when it comes to simplify the product line and focus on the gems, in a Masonic context, Simplify your Masonic meetings and focus on what's most important. Again, don't try to cram 5 hours, and this is a mistake I've made many times. Don't try to focus on or cram in 30 hours of, Freemasonry into a 10-minute meeting. That's not going to work. That's not going to be successful. Focus on 2 or 3 things that you really want to focus on and make those a success. That is really, really critical and really, really key. I've been to meetings where it starts out great and it goes really well, but the master decides, you know what, he has this plan in his head. Like, I've been to meetings when it comes to Freemasonry where the master he has in his mind, like, okay, these are the things I want to do. And suddenly 1 or 2 things go a little bit long, there becomes an issue, there becomes a problem. He's trying to get through it. And instead of pivoting, stopping, trying to go back and change it, he decides, you know what, I'm going to keep going and get everything I want done, and you end up having a really, really challenging meeting because you end up spending 6 hours in this insane meeting. Nobody really learns anything because they're all so exhausted by the end of it. Just focus on 1 or 2 things and do those well instead of trying to focus on a million different things. Believe me, your membership will thank you. I promise you that. That's good, EA Freemason. I'm happy to hear that. Just give me 1 second. I just have to send a quick message. Okay. So going back to number 54. He believed marketing is about values. The world is noisy and you should focus on telling customers what you believe in and what you stand for. From the Masonic perspective, again, I take this as meaning it's important that we as Freemasons be able to communicate our values. What is the values of Freemasonry? I've often said the ability to make the world a better place through the application of brotherly love, relief, and truth. You may view the values as different, which is fine, but I want to know from your perspective then, what are those values? And do you think they are applicable to us? He believed one way to invest in yourself is by exploring uncharted paths that are different from your past experience. You know it's an uncharted path when you have no idea where it will lead. Again, as we discussed earlier, take risks. Take the time to take risks. Don't be afraid of taking risks. Those things are important, they matter, and they can help a lot. Right? He believed that people that think they are following a safe path pay the highest price of all. They won't realize it for a decade or 2, and by then it's too late. I agree with that 100%. I think Freemasonry, not to call anybody out, but Freemasonry suffers from this very, very much. I think for much of the 60s, 70s, 80s, Freemasonry chose to take what it believed to be the safe path by retreating from the public, by not trying to attract membership, by not focusing on growth, by focusing on saving money at the cost of trying new things or new initiatives. And that safe path ultimately led us to a place where our Masonic membership numbers have dropped year by year, and they are the lowest this year that they've ever been. The average age of Freemasons in Texas is 67 years old, if I recall correctly. The safe path was not the right path. And I think that we as Freemasons need to fall in line with the fact that we took a safe path that led us into a very not great place in terms of our membership numbers in North America. Other jurisdictions that took a different path had a very different consequence and a different result. And I think we need to keep that in mind as well. He imagined what reality lacked and set out to remedy it. Note number 57, and yes, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, you're absolutely correct on that. He didn't believe in resting on laurels or sleeping on wins. Make something great, then do it again. Which I believe in 100%. I don't know why. Sometimes within Freemasonry, we have a tendency to have a success and then just sleep on it. I've seen, in my own personal experience, 2 or 3 different occasions where Freemasons had an absolutely incredible and amazing event, something that went incredibly well, and then instead of following up on it, they just rest on that laurel. And the event itself, in some ways, is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, can you, based on that event, have a successful next day and next day and next day, right? A failure is not a failure if you keep trying after you failed and try to do better. By the same token, a success is not a success if you don't keep trying to have another success the next day and if you just stop trying. I hope that makes sense. Don't rest on your successes or sleep on wins, because in some ways that can be the most disrespectful thing to the victory as a concept, you sleeping on it. He believed in straightforward, clear communication. If the work isn't good enough, you have to tell them straight, this isn't good enough, I know you can do better. I think we as Freemasons need to be willing to tell people when their work isn't good, and why it's not good, and why it's important that it's not good. He imagined what reality lacked and set out to remedy it. I think what reality lacks is a strong Masonic relevance, and I'm setting out to remedy that. But we can even lower that and say, imagine what Freemasonry lacks, remedy it. What do you think Freemasonry lacks? How can you remedy it? He believed in straightforward, clear communication. If the work isn't good enough, tell them to him straight. Note number 60. He remained driven by a mission to put something back into the pool of human experience. So I know I've said this before. What is it? Why do I love Freemasonry? It's not because of what it provides to me. It's because of what it allows me to give to others. I want to, when I leave this world, I want to be able to say I put something into the pool of human experience through Freemasonry. I made people's world better through Freemasonry. That is what I'm driven by. It's funny, I guess you could argue, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I do not. Unless you want to argue that, in a sense, we all do, because Steve Jobs was so ubiquitous in how he, in what he did and how it worked, that he influenced the creation of every computer, every type of phone in some way. So I'm certainly using products that are built on his ideals, but I do not use Apple products. I didn't become a huge fan of Apple products until Steve Jobs, until the last probably 5 years. at which point I was already well on my Samsung Chromebook path. And also I should, because Steve Wozniak is himself a Freemason, so you'd think I would do it for that reason, if nothing else. Though I understand not particularly active therein. I need to go back to my posts. I believe I'm at number 60, so we're almost there. 61, he believed in the basics. Great product, great marketing, great distribution. What are the basics of Freemasonry? And do we believe in them? He believed you must keep up with innovations in distributions. That's note number 63. For me, when it comes to Freemasonry, I believe we must keep up with innovations in the world at large. How are people communicating? Are we communicating in the same way? How are people working? Are we working in the same way? Yeah, he was very wealthy. You're not wrong, EA Freemason. He was very wealthy. He believed brands take decades to build. Um, um, I think this goes to the idea he believed brands take decades to build. The brand of Freemasonry, it's been around for centuries, but it's constantly evolving. And if we want to, like a lot of Masonic groups now are trying to create brands for Freemasonry. They're trying to create their brand. Ontario Masons is a brand. California Masons is a brand. Tennessee Masons is a brand. There's a brand that surrounds Freemasonry, but there's not a brand that surrounds individual jurisdictions. And even that Masonic brand is constantly changing. So I think we as Freemasons need to be willing to ask ourselves, what is our brand, and are we willing to spend potentially decades building a brand, creating a brand? What will that look like? I think that's incredibly important and incredibly necessary. And again, be willing to take the time to do it. Even with Scoring Compass Promotions, I'm willing to take, decades if I have to build this brand into something that I hope that people enjoy. And that, oh, I almost got it. Darn it, I have a fly here. And will, support and promote Freemasonry as an idea, or as an ideal, or as something that's relevant to our communities. He would capture the evolution of his own thinking by emailing himself. Journal, right? The importance of journaling. You can do it by emailing yourself if you want, or just write a journal and keep your own thinking. What meeting went well? What meeting did not go well? How can we as Freemasons create a successful meeting? And if you have your thoughts, email yourself, journal yourself, write down your thoughts, write down your ideas. I've even wrote a Medium article talking about the importance of Masonic prompts and why they matter. You are welcome. So journal. It's important for everybody. 65. He viewed Apple as the world's premier bridge builder between normal people and the exploding world of high technology. I view Scoring Compass Promotions as a premier bridge builder between regular people and Freemasons and Freemasonry. At least that's my goal. But do we in Freemasonry have those bridges? Are we building those bridges? What do those bridges look like? I think that's incredibly, incredibly important, and we need to keep that in mind. He wanted to demystify technology. I think we in Freemasonry need to demystify Freemasonry. For too many people, it still has a demystify, or it still has a mystical quality to it. People still think, um, you know, it, people might be, for example, and this isn't even about membership joining, people might have a wedding they need to book, but because Freemasonry is mystical to them, they may not be comfortable booking in a Masonic building or a Masonic temple. We in Freemasonry need to be more willing to demystify what Freemasonry is to create a better and larger amount of relevance in our Masonic journey. Um, because what he noticed, what Steve Jobs noticed, and I've heard him talk about this on many streams, is what was really holding computer sales back was a lot of people were intimidated by computers. They found them scary or nerve-wracking. A lot of his design goals in life was in computers was to make computers demystified, not intimidating, not scary, to make them approachable. That's why, for example, the Mac famously was meant to have the image, the look of it was meant to evoke a smiling face because he wanted to look welcoming and friendly and comforting. That's why on the iMac, that famous computer from like the 90s, 98, they famously put a handle on the top of the monitor. And when you think about it logically, a handle on top of the monitor does not make a lot of sense because it's not meant to be moved around very much. It's the type of computer that you basically put on your desk, and it stays there, right? That's the whole point of it. You're not going to carry on a monitor from work to home the way you would your laptop or your notepad. But the reason that it had a handle was because the handle was something that was welcoming. It made people want to touch it, to pick it up, to hold it, to handle it, to get close to it. It demystified it. Same thing with letting people see the inside of it. Same thing with the smiley face. It's about making technology less intimidating. And with Freemasonry, it's important that we make our buildings less intimidating, less mystical, more part of people's day-to-day lives. Alonzo, it is. I hope that it does not continue to fade, though. And that's the goal of Freemasonry. Another reason it fades is because people find it mystifying. If they find it mystifying, they're less likely to interact with it. If they're less likely to interact with it, it's going to fade away. He believed excellence was a habit. We are what we repeatedly do. I 100% agree with that. 1000% agree with that. We have a responsibility to do good things, to do excellent things. The more excellent things we do, the better we will be. He believed you could simply not mix messages when selling something new. A customer can barely handle one great new idea, let alone several. Again, don't overcomplicate your Masonic meetings. Keep your Masonic meetings on point. Keep your Masonic meetings streamlined, efficient, and direct. Don't try to pack 500 things into a meeting when you have time for 3 things. I'm trying. I think a digital pivot would not hurt. It can't be digital exclusive or digital 100%, but I agree we need a better social media presence. We need a better pivot toward the digital side of the world. I 100% agree with that. He said it's a circus world. You'll never know what's around the next corner, which is very, very true. So let's try to make sure that we enjoy the ride and enjoy the process. He believed in management by values, which means find people that want the same things you want and figure out the best way to get those things along the way. Again, this is a guarding of the West Gate idea, can we make sure that we in Freemasonry find the best people to guard the West Gate? He said, you can't plan to meet the people who will change your life. Be open. So, again, this is what I talked about earlier, but I think it still applies 100%. There's a lot of ways, and we're not doing as many as we could, that's for sure. We're trying, a lot of Masons are trying very hard, but I think we're not doing as well as we could. When I talked about, and this was actually also in Unreasonable Hospitality, by the way, which is a great book that Masons should read. You can't plan to meet the people who change your life. Don't, as Freemasons, and this is also why it's important that we don't separate Freemasonry from our life. We're always a Freemason all the time, or I'm always a Freemason all the time. And what that means is, because I can't plan to meet the people that would change my perspective, change my point of view, and I'm always thinking about Freemasonry, whenever I hear a good idea anywhere, I'm not going to close myself off to that. Right? Because I can't plan to meet the people who give me a good idea. So, like my professional wrestler, right, one of the best, who said he'll take a good idea from the hot dog vendor, we as Freemasons should never plan on thinking to ourselves like, okay, I'm not within Freemasonry, so I'm not going to think about it. You never know when there's going to be a good idea or someone will give you a good idea. So whether you're talking to a janitor, hot dog vendor, lawyer, prime minister, president, who knows, homeless person, like anybody you're talking to, listen to what they have to say, be open, be present. You never know the idea that they may give you and how that idea may change your life and make your life better. Since I've always been thinking about Freemasonry, I've found a lot of incredible ideas in a lot of places you might not expect, a lot of times from non-Freemasons. So keep that in mind. He believed everything is temporary. There's no such thing as safety. Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take risks. There's no such thing as safety. Not taking a risk is a risk in and of itself. He believed your life is a story, and you should remember that your life is a story, and you should always act like your life is a story. Know how to tell a good story. Freemasonry is part of that story. Freemasonry is part of the story of your life. He believed in rejecting dogma, which can be defined as living with the results of other people's thinking. He said dogma can be so loud that it can drown out your own inner voice, and you should avoid this. I would say that goes back to this idea of don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to try new things. And just because a past master is saying X or Y, don't allow people to... Don't be afraid to innovate. Don't be afraid to try new things and think in new things. That's true for life as well. A lot of times what we view as this dogma is actually just somebody else who's failed and is telling other people not to try because they don't want to see somebody else succeed where they failed. He believed a great place to start he believed a great way to start is by improving a product you hate. If you can make something you love, you can convince other people to love it too. I think that's a really valuable skill. The way I'd take it is, if there's something in Freemasonry that you really don't like, some aspect of it that really bothers you, see if you can modify that area to make it something that you love. Because you can take a part of Freemasonry you really don't like and change it to something that you love. You can probably do that with, almost anything in Freemasonry. Yeah, so we in Freemasonry don't recruit aggressively or otherwise. I can't speak to Scientology and the extent to which Scientology does or does not recruit, but one of the things about Freemasonry is we do not recruit. That doesn't mean we don't talk about Freemasonry, how much we love it, why we love it. I 100% think that we should do that, and that's the thing I'm very proud of, the fact that I do that. But we should not be willing to, we should not be afraid to talk about why we love Freemasonry, what it is we love about it, but at the same time, we need to be careful that we are not recruiting, because that's not what Freemasonry does. There's actually a Scientologist building right across the river from me in Detroit. I really want to go inside of there at some point. Tradition, I mean, it goes to the idea of Freemasonry wanting people to join of their own free will and accord. If we have people joining because they've been recruited to join, there's this idea that they might not really want to. They're doing it to make somebody else happy, to make a recruiter happy, right? Which is not what we want. I mean, I have no beef with Scientology. I don't know anything about it. If it brings people a level of comfort and enjoyment, then hey, I'm all for it. I think it's awesome. I just don't know enough about it to say. Um, I try to be as agnostic as possible in terms of the things in people's life that brings them a sense of happiness or community. I wish people got that first and foremost from Freemasonry, but I understand people will find other things, and that's okay. Now, obviously, if they're doing not good stuff, that's different. But I don't know enough about Scientology to say. Um, he said, "All glory." This is the last note from a review of the Steve Jobs book. He said, "All glory is fleeting. You should just get back to making something wonderful." Again, don't be a success isn't a success if you stop trying after you've had your success, and a failure isn't a failure if you get up off the mat and keep trying right after you failed. So all glory is fleeting, all success is fleeting. In your Masonic career, you'll have a good moment, you'll have a good day, enjoy it, but then get back to work and keep trying to make something wonderful. So those are the 78 notes from David Serna at Founders Podcast. Let me know what you thought of those, how you think they could apply to Freemasonry. Did you have a favorite? If you did, what was it? And anything else you want to chat about. We're now at that stage where we're back to just hanging out for a bit to see who joins and what they want to talk about. Please, if you are just joining for the first time, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know if you have any favorite thoughts or any thoughts at all on Freemasonry. I'll probably go on this stream for another maybe half hour, and then we will be back with another stream at 1 a.m., which should be a lot of fun. I'm trying to figure out if I can put down all of these in the video description of it. And so far, I'm not succeeding, but let's see. If I put all these in the video description, double what I need to be. So I'll have to figure this out. But I'll figure it out later. Welcome. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know if there's anything you want to chat about. Answer our poll question. 22 votes. Yes, 64%. No, 36%. Good, Spirit. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Keep up the good work. I know it can be very nerve-wracking to be like a newer Mason. It can be nerve-wracking to be an older Mason. But I'm very happy to hear that. I think you're going to keep on doing a great job. Just making a quick comment here. Please don't forget on August 21st, starting at 2 p.m., another 24-hour live stream. It's going to be an absolute blast. I cannot wait. I'm going to be, amongst other things, showing off all of my Masonic, at least not even all, but a lot of my Masonic items, regalia, things like that, including, my Masonic coin collection, like this guy here. I'm going to have my camera flipped around so you guys will be able to read it. This was from Missouri, 200th bicentennial. In every case, when I share it, I'm going to try to share not just this, but the story behind it, what I remember about getting it. I'm also going to talk about insurance necessities for these things, display purposes, why lodges should have coins made up or pins or something, final or last arrangement situations, things like that. We have got 4. Yeah, I mean, there's so much stuff. And honestly, like I said, I'm not even going to be able to show you everything. Just see if I can't invite someone to join the stream quickly. Yeah, no, there's so many. Like, it's funny because, I was feeling, and I think I've talked about this before, I have at various points, even recently, been feeling really burned out by Freemasonry, by just being a Mason, all the work, feeling like I wasn't really accomplishing much of anything. And then in preparing for the 24-hour live stream and going through all of these documents and all of these items, I realized, like, actually, I have accomplished a ton. And I should be really proud of some of the stuff I've managed to accomplish. Sometimes we're our own worst critics, and we need to remember how much we actually are accomplishing. Where are all these very annoying flies coming from? I think. All right, well, so yeah, that's my humble opinion on that. But I hope everybody watching this is doing well. Please take a moment, if you are just joining us, to hit that like and subscribe button. Yes, Mr. Keeps on Ticking, we will be chilling at 1 a.m. Again, those are the just more relaxing streams. I don't have any topics planned. On Tuesday, I think I'm actually going to be doing kind of almost a series, if you will, of, sounded like Dusty Rhodes there, a series of these CEO lessons. Where I might look at another CEO, lessons from them, and again, what we can take from them. And that's not, by the way, meant as a 100%, that's not meant as a 100% endorsement of everything Steve Jobs did. I may do Elon Musk, and that's not meant as a 100% endorsement of everything Elon Musk did. Actually, a lot of things Elon Musk has done, I'm very much not a fan of, especially recently. But again, we should never close ourselves off from the potential to learn lessons from even people with whom we don't like or disagree with that can potentially benefit us within Freemasonry. So Instagram, I mean, yes, you meet people that you would not meet otherwise. There's a social safety net. If you lose work, whatever it is, you can help them. You can learn skills in terms of memorization, how to run a meeting, the socialization and benefits of that. There are health benefits in terms of being less lonely and with people who support you has been shown to help your life expectancy and your health, but that is not why you should join. That is not the reason to join, is what you get in terms of benefits, because there really aren't that many, relatively speaking. Rather, it's about what you can give. Using note number 20 from this discussion on Steve Jobs, um, um, you should use your unique set of talents to make things that make the lives of people better. Most people just take. The ability to put something back into the pool of human experience is extremely neat. And I agree with that 100%. I think the best thing about Freemasonry is we have gives us the ability to put something back into the pool of human experience to make something that makes the world a better place, which I think is a wonderful thing. I think I just got to fly. Maybe I can catch this other fly. No, I missed the fly. Well, the purpose of the group is at its core the purpose that causes, young kids to create a clubhouse and invite their friends to join, right? The purpose of any group is just that, is to be a group, to be and create a place where people can belong. It's human nature to desire to be part of a group, to be part of something bigger than yourselves. And humans are always going to try to create some version of that group, whether it be the Freemasons or the Elks or the Moose or the Knights of Columbus or a sporting team or whatever it is, right? It is our nature at its core to want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So the impetus, the purpose, the drive that causes humans to create things like Freemasonry is the drive to be part of a group. Freemasonry, it grew from stone mason guilds of the Middle Ages, in Europe. It took on kind of these aspects of moral teachings, artistry, philosophy, as part of their idea to be a Freemason. Some do collect donations, for charitable efforts. Some take donations to help their brothers. There's a lot of different reasons why Freemasons would collect donations for different events, but ultimately it's to create a sense of belonging and a group that provides that. And again, it is ultimately the same purpose that encourages men to create groups of all different sorts, which, men have been doing since well before Freemasonry. And knock on wood, Freemasonry exists forever. But even if Freemasonry stops existing, men will still start to create groups. And women, I mean, when I say man, I mean humankind, more so than anything else. Missed it once again. No, they are not a part of us at all. KKK and Freemasonry are founded on very different principles, right? Freemasonry is open to men of any race or religion. KKK is obviously not. Yeah, the word unfortunately, Freemasons are human beings, which means unfortunately they have all the prejudices and the prejudices of their times and the prejudices of human beings. So there have been Masons in the past, like Nathaniel Bedford Forrest, who I believe founded the KKK or is one of the main organizers of it. It sucks when stuff like that happens. Um, but the fact that even he had to start the KKK means he knew that Freemasonry and the KKK were not compatible. So there was there's no connections, except historically there was there were some Masons also started the KKK, which tells me they did not understand what Freemasonry was all about. But that's a whole other can of tuna for a whole other day. If you are just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. I would truly appreciate it. No, no Illuminatis were started in 1777, I believe. He was started by a Mason who did not like Freemasonry. He thought it was too expensive and not esoteric enough and mystical enough. So he started kind of almost an anti-Masonic group called the Illuminati, which did not do well and did not last long. So, by the way, Instagram cut, I hope you will follow me on Instagram because tomorrow I will be doing some stuff. I will be, sorry, not tomorrow, on August 20th at 5, sorry, I can talk. At August 20th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. I will be streaming on Instagram. I've never done an Insta live stream before, so I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And on August 21st, I will have a 24-hour live stream starting at 2 p.m. talking about 2 p.m. 21st to 2 p.m. the 22nd, showing off all of these cool Masonic coins, pins, all the special things that I've got, along with the stories associated with each of them. So that's going to be an absolute blast. I cannot wait. I hope that you will consider joining for those as well. I hope you answered the poll question. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you have any other discussions that you want to talk about when it comes to Freemasonry. Any other questions? I'll probably be doing this for not too much longer. I will be back on 1 a.m. as well. So keep that in mind. No, no, a lot of people think they are, but they are not. I cannot auction some off. Honestly, though, Spirit, if you join my Patreon at even the $5 mark, you will get. Give me 1 second. I'm right back. I got to show it to you. I got it somewhere. You will get one of these coins. This is already on its way to Courtney, but you'll get one of these coins, and you'll get a special piece of correspondence, a commemorative postcard. So if you, I can't give you a Tyler sword, but if you join the Patreon at the $5 or above tier, up to $15, you'll get one of those. $50 per month, you get a scale model Windsor Masonic Temple. Welcome back, Brother Adam. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. I hope that you will hit that like button if you've not done so yet. We're going to be ending this stream pretty soon. I will be back on tonight at 1 a.m. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Freemasonry, answer the poll question, all that good jazz. And let me know if there's anything you want to talk about for maybe, let's say, 10 minutes or so. Lear? Liar? Lear? I'm not trying to pronounce that. But if he's on Instagram, I hope he'll follow me. And I can mention him on Instagram if you'd like. That's no troubles. So this is the just hang out, ask questions phase. So anything you guys want to chat about? We don't sacrifice goats. We sacrifice pigeons here in Windsor. Um, Goats are too hard to store and maintain. They're too big. We need to, it's easier to keep pigeons. They're smaller, they're a little bit easier to handle. I'm surprised you sticking to goats. Clearly you've not been paying attention. No, we do not sacrifice Alonzo. It'd make the meetings more exciting and interesting if they did, I think, but we do not. That is one of those kind of funny jokes we make about Freemasonry, though. Especially if you're a Mason, you kind of joke about get the goat. It's meant as a joke because there was a time when one of the conspiracy theories around Freemasonry was that we sacrificed goats. People were saying that we did, and so it became this kind of long-standing conspiracy theory within Freemasonry. Yes, we definitely sacrifice our time. We sacrifice a little bit of our money, though not a terrible amount, to be honest. Usually it's not too expensive to be a Mason. I don't want to I want to be careful when I say that because, $100 a year for some people can be a lot of money if they are on, the most, if they're on a very tight budget, but 1,000 per year, that is a lot. That's, I pay about $500 per year, but I'm a member of 5 lodges, so keep that in mind. Oh, so it's more than one. Yeah, 1,000 for a single lodge would be a lot. You cannot, which is kind of an issue. I'm hoping that changes over time. We can find a way to turn this into a money-making venture of some sort, because the biggest challenge with Freemasonry right now is people need to focus on their work to pay for their family, and Freemasonry doesn't give them the opportunity to do that, right? With Freemasonry, if you dedicate 50 hours a week to Freemasonry, you're not going to get paid for it. And if you have a family, you really can't do that unless you find a way to monetize it. So I'm hoping we can find a way to do that, but I do not know right now if we'll be able to. But I'm working on it. Yeah, I mean, I'm no fan of Alex Jones, but he does seem to have got a nice little scheme happening at the moment. So we'll see. I have vitamins. I don't think those are real vitamins, sir. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't believe that those are real vitamins. If anybody on here is taking them, then I would get myself checked out. We're gonna give this, like I said, another maybe 5 minutes. Um, I agree. I'm no fan of Alex Jones, that's for sure. But in fairness, he's no fan of Freemasonry or me, so there's that as well. But no, I'm no fan of his either. You and me are in the same boat there, 100%. All right, I think we will. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Brother Adam, if you go back and watch my stream about an hour in, I start talking about Freemasonry and Steve Jobs, or lessons that Freemasons can learn from Steve Jobs, based on the work by somebody on X who kind of condensed his leadership points and philosophy into a series of notes. Well, yeah, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but that's okay. That's okay. There are people like that that exist. We got to kind of meet them where they're at, right? Is the as a social worker would say. Not that I am a social worker, but that's what they would say. Got to meet them where they're at. It is. But yeah, and you can pay attention to something I'm going to produce today. I do not know why they exist. That's my question too. Just but yeah, I'm going to be jumping off. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll be back at 1 a.m. and then 1 p.m. I'm still getting ready for my stuff on Thursday, Friday. It's going to be a blast. I'll see you all soon. Thank you all for being here. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the like, subscribe button. I'll see you all soon. Yes, I agree with that. Alex Jones puts ranch on pizza. I'm convinced of it. I'm Instagramming to try something new. I'm always arguing that we in Freemasonry need to not be so risk averse, need to be willing to try different things, to be on different formats, different places. So I think it's worth giving it a shot and seeing how it goes. It may not work out the first time. It's kind of like doing a 24-hour live stream. It's one of those things where I just want to try something different and see how it works. So if I'm going to tell people we in Freemasonry need to be willing to try different things, then a big part of that is we need to be willing to try different things, or I need to be willing to try different things. So that's the reason. So that is August 20th, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. And also, I hope it brings more people onto my Instagram, because I think I'd like to, I do post a lot of pictures from my travels on those Instagram pages, and I don't want to, I think they present a good resource. And I don't want to let it atrophy. We're just going to see who joins. I'm just going to take one more second because somebody just jumped on and said they might jump on the stream. So let's give it 1 second. I know I know so many people on the audience here are not themselves on Instagram, but I'm curious if I start to see more of an overlap between my Insta stream and my YouTube streams. But on the 20th, I'll still be YouTube streaming from 1 p.m. to about 3 p.m. Then I'll switch over to Instagram. So we shall see how many people can find me for that one. Oh, I caught it too, and then it didn't bash it hard enough. Oh, grilled pepper steak, or grilled steak and cream cheese pepper jack. That sounds so good. Oh, you're making me hungry. You're making me hungry. All right, guys. I'm going to be jumping off the stream now, but thank you everybody who has joined. Be back at 1 a.m. I'm gonna make some food now, Mr. Courtney, because you've made me very, very hungry. So thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button before I go. Well, I actually got it. I was gonna go. Now I'm gonna switch over because Mr. keeps on ticking. What type of peppers? Like all peppers? Because I am not a fan of green peppers as a rule, but I love all the other types of peppers. Abdallah. Why must it be either or? Why can't it be both? I don't know what you mean by that question. I'm a member of a Masonic lodge in Israel, Lodge Holy Land number 50. I'm very proud to be so. I guess you would call me a Zionist in that I believe that Israel should exist. Basically, I think Israel should exist in the 67 borders, I guess. And I believe in a Palestinian state. But I have no issue with Iran, at least with the Iranian people. I think the people of everywhere deserve, to be respected. I'm not a huge fan of the government per se, but then again, I'm not a huge fan of the government of Israel either. So, really, so all of them, because I love red, yellow, and orange peppers. Roasted peppers are so good. Oh my God, you take roasted red, orange, and yellow peppers, wrap them in tin foil with some olive oil, salt, pepper, usually some Italian seasoning. They taste so, so good. I love those. So whenever we have a Masonic meeting and there's vegetables, what I usually like to do is, if there's leftovers, I'll take the leftovers home. It usually includes cut up peppers, put them in tin foil, and give them a delicious, delicious fry in the air fryer. Keeps things interesting. Keeps things interesting. I wonder if Abdallah is back and wants to jump in hit the like and subscribe button. Abdallah, if you're still there, I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. We got 24 votes. Yes, for this question was still in the lead, 67 to 33. So yes, took a slight lead, but maybe not as much as I might hope or one might hope. There is, well, we'd have to create it because there is no inner circle. If we create an inner circle, though, then we'll give the conspiracy theorists something to talk about. So that would be a problem, They already think there's an inner circle. All right, guys, this has been fun, but I'm finally going to jump off. Be back on 1 a.m. Mr. keeps on ticking. You're wrong about peppers. Courtney, enjoy your peppers. All right, talk to you guys later.